Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live video. It is Friday the 31st of January 2025. We have made it through the first 12th of 2025. Look at that. And onwards and upwards as we continue on through what I hope is a long winter. I really am enjoying the cool weather in Phoenix, and yeah, I know that heat's coming, and then I'm gonna wonder why I'm here. But for right now, this can't go on long enough. Like, we have great weather. We had a couple of days of getting some personal errands run, so we appreciate your patience as we deal with some stuff behind the scenes. And here we are with another build. I do want to state that everything you see in today's video has been brought to you by the good folks at you. Yes, our members, our contributors, the people who send us Amazon gift cards, the people who send us super chats, the people in green that are all members. All that money gets reinvested back into the channel. And with that, I'm able to maintain an independent, unbiased, unpressure. I don't know what's the word for that. I'm not under a specific clock to get something done because a company sends me something and, you know, they immediately want to review as soon as they send it. When we buy products, we review them whenever we want. We don't review whatever gets offered to us, but rather what we want to review. And so this financial independence allows us to be an independent reviewer, or at the very least, introduce you to products. I'm not comfortable telling you what you should do, right? I'm not comfortable, nor should I think anybody be comfortable recommending a product without caveats, because it holds up to their values, which may be completely different from your values. And what they find acceptable, you may find unacceptable. There's no such thing as an accurate review. All you need to do is watch a movie review. There's plenty of them on YouTube, and see how many of those you agree with the assessment of the movie. So you take that information to familiarize yourself perhaps about who's in the movie, what the plot is about. You know, overall, were most people happy with it or unhappy with it? I mean, how much research you want to do into a $15 movie is on you. Now, if you're buying a $30,000 car, what's interesting to me is sometimes the movie reviews are longer than the car reviews. And a car you're probably going to own for many years. You're going to be committed to it, and somebody's going to tell you whether or not they think this is a good car or not based on having the car for like a day. And they're going to recommend you invest in a 5 or 6 year financing term and live with this potentially big mistake because some rando on YouTube or wrote an article online that you believe to be true. Your decisions are your responsibility. So my main goal isn't to convince you or twist your arm or sell you anything. We have that freedom because of our financial independence. We don't have to worry about it. If you want to buy it, buy it. If you don't, don't. But you may not know what's available to buy unless you get introduced to it. I mean, I've found a bunch of new products lately that are amazing. And had I known they existed, I would have bought them much earlier. But that's my opinion. So today we're working with parts that I genuinely want to work with. So we've got a case here by a company called MONTECH. I've never heard of them before. We've never worked with a MONTECH case before. I don't know what their build quality is. This is a brand new case called the Heritage line that just came out. And it's just very different. I'm always looking for something different. I'm tired of the aquariums. I'm tired of the RGB. Let's move on. So this moves on. Now, if moving on is in a positive direction or a negative direction, well, that's yet to be determined. But we've got like a leather, black and leather look here. This would look really nice in an office building. This is just enough, right? Maybe a little RGB, maybe an RGB RAM. That's it, nothing more. Nothing that really requires a bunch of cable management, nothing that's outrageous, and nothing that really adds much to the price of the machine, because a business is probably going to want several of these, not just one. You got to keep that in mind. Or maybe you're a home user and you feel like all of those RGB gaming machines are for children and they're immature, and you wish to have something a bit more civilized. Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon? Certainly. Perhaps this is that. I don't know yet. It seems to be the nice meet in the middle, where we have the business cases that have no case windows and no RGB, no liquid coolers. You can't put a liquid cooler in a 200R. Well, I suppose you could put a little tiny one in the back, but what's the point? This is a nice meet in the middle from the way it looks. Now, the way it builds, we're going to find out today. Of all the parts I've got here, you'll see I do not have a CPU cooler yet. I have ordered a CPU cooler that's supposed to arrive today during the show. If that happens, wonderful. If it doesn't, I have some alternatives on a shelf that won't hesitate to, I'll jump to those if need be, to get the motherboard prepped. I've already downloaded the drivers and BIOS update for the ASUS board. Let's talk about the parts. But first, before I talk about the parts, welcome in everybody. It's good to see everyone again. Feels like it's been a while. It's only 3 days, but man, it feels like a long time. So let's see. Katrina joins us, and Darren Gilholm says hello. There's Steve G says hello. Eddie Casanova and Mortant1210. David Graham and Badger joining us. Badger says, good evening from the UK. Welcome in. Rick Lakes from Minnesota. There's our good friend Charlie Purdy saying hello, along with Luke Greenia and Thomas MacT. Planet Cryos, Mark Gaines and Doman 2000 and James Carter. Matt, Scott, Jonathan, Kurt Schlegel. I already said Matt. John Paul Bacon. Andy Kane, I'll say hello. Croatia Gunner says good evening from Croatia. Welcome in. Bill Stodds saying hello, along with Chris Garrett, Thomas Backenstow. Bill Sony says hello. Renews membership, now a member for 32 months. Thank you. Sorry, that's not... Bill Sony's a member for at least 6 months. It's Mark Baggett who renewed membership. I got to get my glasses. Mark Baggett with now a member for 32 months. He says, thanks for all of the great content. Thank you to Mark. Of course, thank you to Bill Sony as well. Let's see, who else? Mecca Cameron saying hello, along with David Herzog. Of course, Mara's in our chat room. Mara's our channel administrator. Gary Bickle says hello. Wayne Ellison says hello. Richard DeFries joins us from Ireland. Lauro Silvestri says MONTECH was previously named Fantex. Really? Oh, I had no idea. I know Fantex. In fact, the streaming computer we were using was a Fantex Enthoo, but I thought Fantex had a new Enthoo case coming out, the Enthoo 4 or something. So yeah, I guess I missed that memo. So I appreciate you letting me know. There's our friend Frankie B joining. Says he can't watch the whole video, but he'll catch up later. Right on. Thank you, Frankie. Shout out to our friend Buster. Hopefully he's doing well. I don't see him in there today, but hopefully he'll be watching this later. And just a shout out, let you know we're thinking of you, as well as our friends Oystein and Paul Gray. Paul is in Australia. Oystein is in Norway. Bryce Hoskins says hello. Nick Caffrey renews membership, now member for 13 months. And Nick said, yes, my first PC is given a year of perfect service. Thank you, CareyHolzman. Well, it sounds like you might have picked some recommended parts I had, huh? Davis Parsons says hello from my new Galaxy S24 FE. Right on, fan edition phone. David Graham with a $2 super chat says, I missed you. Well, right on, David. Well, we missed you too. And we appreciate you joining us, all of you, for joining us today. And thank you for the super chat. Elmo's Fines says hello. And Mark Leibowitz, who runs a computer repair shop in the Chicago area, joins us here in the chat, as well as Garfield Rupe and Dazzle555. Okay, I hope I got everybody in there. So let's get on with the parts we're using today, shall we? Sure, we shall. And Charlie Purdy with a $10 super chat says, I think this will be a nice build. You know, I pretty much go into all of them thinking that, Charlie. Let's find out. We're live, unscripted, and unrehearsed. So this is how real computer technicians work. The unfortunate reality is that you're being hidden from the unfortunate reality on YouTube and television. For the most part, what you're watching are polished and edited, often scripted videos that did not represent reality in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes I get viewers that come in here and out and they think, well, I thought you're a tech. Oh yeah, I know everything. I can look at something I've never looked at before and immediately know everything about it without any hesitation while I'm live, unscripted, unrehearsed. I've never seen it before in my life. That's how that works. So people go, oh, I thought you know what you're not. Keep watching. Because what you're missing is the diagnostic. You're missing the reverse engineering and the critical thinking mindset that enables me to fix anything on this bench. There's never been a computer on this bench I've never been able to fix. Now, sometimes it's financially not feasible, but it has nothing to do with whether or not I've done it before. I've done other things similar enough that I can say, well, every computer is more or less the same. You can go all the way back to the 80s. They're kind of the same. So once you establish that foundation, sure, some things come apart a little differently, but it's all essentially the same foundation. The internal combustion engine that a car uses hasn't really changed for over 100 years. The basic principles still apply today. And sure, we use fuel, maybe fuel injectors, throttle body injection, or fuel system deliveries have upgraded from, say, carburetors. But the basic function of an engine, of pistons going up and down and compressing, controlling an explosion that creates a downforce that pushes the piston down, just your typical normal engine, it's the same. If you learned how to work on them in 1910, you know how to work on them today. It's the same principle. Maybe the bolts and the tools we use are a little different, and maybe the confinement of where they locate parts is, but I guarantee you there's a water pump. There's going to be some kind of alternator, unless it's an electric car, right? But those are still not the majority of cars out there. So maybe someday, maybe not. The point is, if you understand the foundation, you don't need to know everything. You can figure it out. And this is what separates the pros from the enthusiasts online. The enthusiasts online will figure it out and then edit the video together as though they knew what they were doing the whole time. Versus I, as a professional technician in this industry for over 34 years, I'm going to show you how it actually works in real life. When we encounter a problem in field service tech, we often encounter problems we've never seen and computers we've never seen. We're being charged, or we're billing by the hour, and we're often getting paid by the hour, and we often have numerous other computers to fix that day. We don't have all day to sit around and tinker and try and figure it out and go to Reddit and Google, especially in the 1980s, in the early 1990s, or heck, even all of the 1990s. That really wasn't possible. So we had to learn how to do that on our own. You are on your own without any help. And when you come from that background, you don't suddenly start looking for help 20 years later. You understand, like when I started fixing computers professionally in 1991, there was no internet publicly available. There was no Google. And the resources we had to use were either talking to other knowledgeable people in our industry that knew what they were talking about, because just like the internet, there are people that have no clue, and you'll find out when you take their advice and it gets you in trouble that you won't ask them for advice anymore. Because I learned that way, to me, aside from maybe grabbing a quick tip or something online, just give me a hint, I have no desire to look online for solutions. It's simply not the way I was taught. And this may be a personal preference. I'm not saying my way is superior to anybody else's. What I'm saying is my ability to figure something out on my own is what attracts me to this business. If other people are going to do all my homework for me, there's really no lessons I'm learning. If I'm in high school and I'm given a math problem and I bully somebody to go, here, do my homework, I've learned nothing. I have all the answers. Very rarely would a bully say, teach me how you got to those answers. So the only person the bully is hurting is themselves. And if you want to rely on Google and Reddit for all your answers, I mean, good luck with it, because in my experience, that's like going to WebMD to try and diagnose yourself. There's so many wrong answers, or answers that don't apply, that you wouldn't even know until you tried them and realize they're a complete waste of your time. Because without the experience, it's hard to know. For a lot of problems, not all problems, but a lot of problems require understanding if the solution's reasonable or not. So I'll give you an example of one. We have a free forum where we encourage all of you to join us and leave messages for chatting with each other, introducing yourselves, or helping with any technical problems. CareyHolzman.boards.net. We've got a link to it in the description below the video. And we'd love to see you in there. It's completely free. There's no monetization of it. It's not just for members. It's for anybody who wants to go in there and interact. And you just post a message and someone will reply to your message. It's pretty simple. And what's great is it's 24/7. You know, the messages stay up indefinitely. It's not like a live chat that scrolls. And somebody asked why on their system, if they try to populate all 4 RAM sockets on their AM5 motherboard, the 2 far right slots, the ones closest to the edge of the board, they don't work. But those do work. So in other words, if they put 1 RAM module in the first 2 slots and 1 RAM module in the second 2 to activate dual channel mode, the system only sees the 1 stick of RAM closest to the CPU. And this is consistent and repeatable. RAM is good. Nothing in the last 2 RAM sockets is recognized by the board. And so I said, well, it should be a new board. Did you contact the board manufacturer? And apparently the board manufacturer was like, well, look into it, never got back to them. And I'm like, you should ask for an RMA, return material authorization. Sounds like the board is bad. So then I decided, let me just Google this, right? And I look on specifically Reddit. So dual channel not working Reddit would be like the search. And most of it's all crap. Just crap, 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 crap. And then I see something. Based on my experience in evaluating the responses and how ridiculous most of the responses are, I see one that's intriguing to me. Somebody has a nearly identical problem. And it turns out they tightened the brackets for their cooler so tight it bent the motherboard, so now those slots won't seat the memory properly. Now, I've warned you guys time and time and time again. Stop over-tightening bolts. This is not a waterproof submarine that we're building here. And I know you want your cooler to be tight, but you've got to realize you're overdoing it. When you're tightening down the bolts and they start to give you resistance, and you're starting to really have to put force to get them to turn a little bit, you've taken it too far. You've already taken it too far. So I don't know if the brackets were installed incorrectly. That's also a possibility. Or if the person just gorilla wrenched them down and has flexed the board. But what intrigued me were the responses in this particular Reddit thread where someone said, that fixed the problem. And then someone else said, that fixed it for me too. And so on a whim, because this problem doesn't make any sense to me, I've never seen or heard of it before. And most of all of the research I did, except for this one Reddit post, one out of a couple of dozen that came up, only one I was able to filter out from all the others being completely just rhetoric nonsense because of my experience. I said, this could be it, even though I've never seen that or heard of it before in my life. So I copy and paste it. And I always give credit, by the way, which you should do too. If you haven't written something yourself, give credit to your source. So I say, hey, I found this on Reddit. Here's what it says. Start quote, paste, end quote. That's the part I'm copying. I'm not plagiarizing it. I'm not taking credit for it. Right? I think this is important. Because otherwise you're deceiving people, whether you realize it with intention or not. You're making it out like you know all this stuff. So the viewer or the person in the members, person in our viewers forum said, oh, I feel like an idiot. You know, I just changed the cooler. And maybe in other words, he wasn't having this problem till he changed the cooler, and he didn't put those two things together. But once it was brought to his attention, hey, maybe this is something to consider. Sounds like we might have solved the problem. And I share that with you because I've never seen that in all my years. But I haven't seen everything. And if I had, I'd be very bored and probably want out of this career out of sheer boredom. I love stuff like that. I love it. And if that is another item to add to my bag of tricks, you know, hey, we got to make sure that when I do it, I never have this problem. Okay. But if you're doing it for the first time, you have got to realize we're not sealing this airtight. Okay. There's no reason to put your bolts on that tight. And listen to me when I'm building a computer and watch what I'm doing. Do you see my muscles bulge out and see me struggle when I'm tightening anything? Maybe when I'm trying to get the lid off a Gatorade, but not when I'm putting a computer together. So look, not making fun of anybody. I'm just saying you can overdo it. You can try too hard. Don't try so hard. On the other hand, I appreciate and respect those who actually bother trying, because there's a lot of people who give up. They go, well, I don't know how to do this, so I'm not even going to try. And that's frustrating to watch somebody dismiss their own capabilities as though they're not capable, when the only part of them that's not capable is in their head. And that's not a problem I can easily solve. So for anybody who builds their own system, and especially to those who make mistakes along the way, cheers. Welcome to the club. Now you're acting more like a professional and less like an enthusiast. Nothing wrong with enthusiasts. Have a good time. You know, want to play in a sandbox? I don't mind. But if you're being held accountable and responsible for other people's equipment, and they're relying on you because they can't earn any money or help their customers until you're done, and you have other customers waiting for you, you can understand there's a different approach to how we go about diagnosing and repairing than somebody sitting at home with nothing better to do. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm saying that there's an abundance of YouTube videos by enthusiasts, because who else would make content but some kind of enthusiast? Most people don't make content because most people aren't enthusiasts, or the level of their enthusiasm isn't as high. If it was, they'd be making videos. But the people working, showing you how to do the work, which is what I do, they're out there, but they're hard to find. There's folks like Doug Betts. There's folks like Planet Cryos and Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. Salem Techsperts. These are actual people in the industry that are going to give you some common sense advice that also has to do with them being able to earn a living and to be able to help numerous people every day, not just one person. Many of us are self-employed, so if we get monopolized by one customer, that can shut our whole business down. If other customers are tired of waiting, they will take their business somewhere else. So it's a difficult thing to balance, besides I'm just going to tinker with my computer at home today because I'm bored. These are two very different approaches, and neither one is superior to the other, but I want you to be aware that you're watching two different kinds of videos on YouTube. It's one or the other. A lot of enthusiasts make reviews that are nothing more than commercials. I would love to see United States law change to identify what a review is. If a reviewer is paid to do the review, it is not a review. Period. That's a commercial. So it just needs, there's nothing wrong with it. It's that if they don't give you that full transparency at the start of the video or in the title or on the video itself, this is a promotional video, then they're lying to you. They're omitting critical information that dilutes the value of what you think is authentic, when in fact it is a paid scripted commercial disguised as a tech review. And some people say, well, I find that entertaining. That's great. It should be labeled as entertainment. That's all. If it's education, label it as such. If it's entertainment, label it as such. If it's educating, and it's both, you don't have to have a single label. Put all the labels on it. That would help us understand what we're watching as viewers, because I see too much misunderstanding from the viewers about what they're watching. And that's why bolts get over-tightened. That's why thermal paste sells out. And that's why there's so much RGB. That's why the 9800X 3D chip is sold out. This is the power of influence. It's not necessarily that much better of a chip than any of the other AMD chips in that family. But for some reason, everybody wants that one specific one because it's that much faster, that much. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine if we shop for anything else that way? All right. Anyway, I had to get that off. I don't want to become one of the others because there's already too many of those out there. I want to see more real working folks giving out tech advice and being able to identify the real ones from the wannabes. You know, hey, I'm working. This is a video of me working. Hey, I'm playing. This is a video of me playing. That's fine. Just tell me what it is. Sometimes somebody's playing, but it looks like they're working. And then the viewer walks away thinking you just watched a real job being done or a real review, when in fact you watched a commercial or a highly scripted and highly polished and edited video where all of the accidents, mistakes, and learning lessons were removed. It's deceitful, in my opinion. So I like to keep everything transparent and honest here, and it does make my videos longer than most because I believe a lot of exposition and explanation is cut out of most videos. And what's funny to me are some viewers, they don't want to know how to do the math. They get upset. You took an hour to do a math problem, Carey, when the answer was all the way at the end of the video. You could have saved me all the time and effort of teaching me by just giving me the answer and making me dependent on other people so I would not be self-sufficient, you jerk. You wasted an hour of my time trying to teach me. Okay. They want to watch commercials and they're mad at me because I'm explaining and educating, and they just want the answers and they don't want to know how to solve the problems. And they get mad at me because of that. Literally, just like they picked the video. I didn't make them watch a video. Go watch something else. This isn't for you. I didn't make it for you. It's funny to me. How dare you? I want to remain ignorant. I don't have time to learn. Anyway, this is what it's like behind the camera on YouTube in 2025. Let's hope our society evolves a bit more. But in the meantime, you guys clearly have. That's why you're here. And I appreciate each and every one of you because you get it. You get what we're doing here. So let's take a look at parts. Went off on my tangent. Had a squirrel. All right, so today, what are we using? Let's start with the case. Everything we've got here on the table, it has a link in the video notes below today's video. Take you right to Amazon. We do make a small commission if you purchase using one of our links from Amazon. It's not much. I'm not getting rich off of it, but it's a nice way to support the channel anonymously, and it doesn't cost you any more to do so. So with that, let's jump over to our window capture here. Let's take a look at what we've got. So the MONTECH case, they have two different versions of the, well, I suppose two different colors, each in two different versions. So this is what they call just the regular Heritage case. And then the Heritage Pro has 4 fans. You see 3 on the bottom and 1 in the back. And it's also got this additional little nubby thing here that sticks out for hanging your headphones. And for those 4 fans and that little headphone nub, you're going to pay an extra $30, $20. I just went with the regular Heritage Black. Likewise, they have the same combo available with the leather in white, with both the 4 fans and headphone nub, and the regular version, $20 less, with no fans included and no headphone holder. I think it's a nub. It's got a carrying handle on it. I guess the carrying handle must be in the box, because I don't see it on top. Maybe we have to add that. We'll find out. With regards to the motherboard, we picked an ASUS Tough Gaming B860M Plus Wi-Fi. These are the new chips, the B860. So when these new Intel chips came out, they came out with the Z890. And then after CES, they introduced the more budget-friendly 860 instead of 890, which is an enthusiast or higher level board. The 860 is for everybody else. So of course, when a new product comes out, Intel only introduces 3 products: the Ultra 5, the Ultra 7, and the Ultra 9K versions, high-end only. Flagships of each model. That's it. That's all you get. and the Z890 boards, which are expensive and high-end. After about 2 or 3 months, then they release other processors that'll be Ultra 5s, Ultra 7s, and Ultra 9s. And they release the more mid-range 860 series of board, which is much more affordable and probably all most people need. You looking for something?
No, we're getting some choppy
issues with our internet connection?
No, the internet connection is perfect.
What's choppy?
The video.
The video is choppy.
It's a little bit choppy. It's like really happening.
We have had some drop frames, a lot. Yeah, 4.9% so far, which is unusual, but nothing on our end has changed. So, I mean, apart from the updates I did over the week, I was going to say the weekend. One of the things I did is I updated a lot of drivers and BIOS and everything else, and maybe, but really nothing that should have to do with the internet. We'll just keep an eye on it, but normally we don't drop frames, but we are today, so it's not you. Okay, thank you for the update. So this is our board that we're going to use today. You'll see how much money this is going to add up to. We got $90 in a case. We've got $210 on the motherboard. So we're at about $300 right now. Then when it comes to the CPU, it's another $320. All right, this is an Ultra 5. This is the 245K. There's no cooler included with any K processors from Intel. Interesting, it says it's an LGA 1700. That is not true. That is an LGA 1851. Interesting, they made that mistake. So now we're at what, $620? For RAM, I'm just going to put in, what do I have, a 32 gig kit. It's $80. Why is that so much money? So about $680, I suppose. It's 5600 speed. Maybe that's why it's a bit more. And then ORICO sent us this 2 terabyte drive for testing. I thought, what better way to test it? Let's use it in a build. It's got a 5% off coupon. Let's call it $100. So it's about an $800 build. Plus, we still have the power supply, which is an EVGA 650. This went up a little bit. I was paying about $59 for these. And then lastly, we'll have a cooler. So after sales tax, we're probably right at $1,000, but we're also looking at a system that's going to be viable for the next 10 years. Easily 10 years. So unless something drastically changes with security or operating systems, I expect to see this system back, if not for just a regular upgrade for more storage or more RAM. Other than that, the way we build it today is likely how it's going to stay for the next 10 years. Now, this has been pretty normal for me on my builds. When you build something like the 8-year build, my goal was that you would have a machine that would last you a minimum of 8 years. Well, the technology and hardware is advancing so much faster than software. Right now in 2025, and for the last 5 years, these 8-year builds are now 10-year builds. So if you want to buy it once, drop $1,000 on something that's not over the top, because look, we could spend $3,000 on something like this. In fact, we could turn this into a gaming PC simply by adding a graphics card. And with a 5080 coming out for $1,000, you've just doubled the price of a computer. You could have 2 computers or 1 computer and a GPU. That's on a 50. If you go higher than that, you go to $2,000. So this could be a $3,000 computer, all depending on the GPU. That's why I don't focus on gaming. It's a sport of the rich. People who have money and people who have time. You have to have both time and money to do this. And unfortunately, for me, those aren't the people who hire me. The people who hire me are usually trying to make a profit, not trying to spend the money. They're trying to make money with their tools. So I build tools that some people can use as toys. It's fine. The foundation is still the same. We still start with a basic tool. And then if you want to turn it into a toy, you just add your graphics card. Now, you could play games on it with the built-in graphics. They're just not going to be at the highest definition, highest resolutions, or the highest frame rates, but it'll do it. It's not what it's intended for. You could use a screwdriver as a chisel. I wouldn't stop you, but it's not what it's intended for. Your results may vary. With that, There is something rattling around in here since I've taken it out of the box. And I don't know what it is. Something broken? I don't know. Because I like to keep my videos transparent, genuine, authentic, unscripted, unedited, and unrehearsed, I thought we would find out what's rattling around in there together, because if it's something major, then all we're going to do today is prep the board. But if it's just a loose piece that perhaps was a wire tie or a nylon zip tie that broke free that was holding something in there, which is what I think it is, then likely it's just making noise. It hasn't hurt anything. But it's pretty significant noise. I mean, if you got a box like this, brand new, and you took it out of the box, well, I think I found out. This is normally secured to the side of the motherboard tray on a new build. This is the little box that contains screws and other mounting hardware for mounting fans and motherboard and drives in this case. But I still think there's more in there. I see, oh, I guess you can use a small form factor power supply in here if you wanted to shoot yourself in the foot. Dumb idea. Geez, I hope I don't have to use a small form factor. I hope that's just an option. Let's just take the panel off. I was going to reach in the hole back here. Hello. But that's really doing it the hard way. Let's just take the panel off and see what's going on inside. I am hopeful that nothing is wrong with the case. When loose parts fly around inside the case, they can break the glass, or they could knock things like hard drive cages or other items like a GPU support. They could literally break them right off. Shipping can be pretty harsh. Hey, that's pretty neat. It kind of overlaps on the top there. All right. Let's set this down. Put that right there. There we go. What do we have? An empty bag. There was something in here. Okay, that, whatever this is secured. I think this is the handle, the carrying handle. I guess you'd have to take the carrying handle off to get the side panel off. If the carrying handle connects to both side panels, then how would you get the side panel off? With the carrying handle attached. So now it makes sense to me why it's not pre-attached. And you definitely want that to be secure because you don't want the handle to come off easily, especially not where you're carrying it by the handle and then have it unsnap and then the whole computer drops to the floor. So, okay, I get it. I see. Okay, that's exactly what that is. It doesn't seem to have an up or a down. Both sides are the same. We'll set that aside, get that out of here. Okay, we'll set it over there. Okay, now I don't see anywhere for like a hard drive cage to go. There's no hard drive cage in here. There is a power supply mount right here, so I guess the power supply is going to mount vertically like we've seen in the Johnsbow cases. And we've got space for 3 fans down here with what appears to be, let's see. Oh yeah, that's a decent filter. I'm okay with that. Geez, from the way it looked from the other side, I thought it was one of those screens that you just have to bend off. So I'm glad that this is a proper framed screen with magnet attachments. That makes it very easy to clean the dust out of it. Personally, I think putting fans on the bottom of a computer is one of the worst locations you could possibly put fans. I've seen some cases where the fans are lifted up off the bottom and tilted so they're more showcased. That's really just for show. If you want to build a vacuum cleaner, put your fans down here. If you want to build a system that stays cool, leave fans away from the bottom. Your system will almost always run cooler with a fan in front and a fan in back, or a fan in front and a fan on top. Not both, one or the other, back or top. So we would put a fan right up here at the front to draw air in. We want the air to go through the system and out through the back or through the top. That's it, not both. It's very small. There's not a whole lot of air there. If you don't have air movement, you're going to have heat issues. And if you add all the fans down here, what you're doing is you're disrupting airflow. You got to make up your mind which way you want to go. If you wanted to, you could skip the fan on the front and the back and put fans on the bottom and the top. So your airflow goes from the bottom up through the top. The problem is you're not going from front to back, right? So you'd have to do all three and then likely get 3 exhaust fans to have that air flow perfectly across the entire surface. But the minute you put crosshair in the other way, whether you're going sideways and interrupting it with up and down, or you're going up and down and interrupting it with sideways, you're buffeting the air and you're preventing it from moving effectively and efficiently. If you, well, let's go back to a car analogy. If you put a car in reverse, most cars, the engine's up front. If you've ever opened the hood of a car, it's got a big fan in front of the engine, not behind it. So if you put your car in reverse and you drove it in reverse for a period of time, your engine's not getting cooled. The fluid is still running, but nothing's cooling on the radiator. Your car is going to overheat because it's not designed to move the air for that period of time in that direction. And the computer is no different. Just because you can get away with it doesn't mean it's a good idea. We could put as many fans in this case as it can hold, but we will likely be causing our computer to use more electricity. We'll generate heat from the fans. We generate noise from the fans. We create a lot more dust inside the case. It becomes more like a vacuum cleaner. And on top of that, it's not going to cool as well. It's going to run hotter. If you add too many fans, your system is going to run hotter, right? If you take a couple of aspirin, it's going to help a headache, but if you take the whole bottle, not so much. So essentially, what we're looking for is moderation. We're not looking for extremes. Now, if we're not putting a video card in this, we really don't even need the fan in the front. That's just there to cool a video card. If we're just using onboard video built into our CPU, just one case fan is all we need. That's it. Anything more than that is just contributing to dust collection, and it will not help your cooling in any meaningful way. If the system is running within its operational temperature range, it doesn't run any better. That's it. That's as good as it gets. At 60 degrees or at 90 degrees, it is operationally exactly the same. However, what I like to make sure is if the system is pressed hard under an intense workload, will it overheat? And if you're having an overheating problem in that scenario, adding more case fans is not your solution. Your problem is you've got the wrong cooler for that CPU. That's it. So if you like to add fans because you like the way fans look or you have some sort of weird fascination with them, you can waste your money all day long. I don't mind. But if you were my customer and I did that to you, you would have a right to call me a thief, to sell you something you didn't need and to charge you more than you needed to pay for something that is purely a personal preference and has nothing to do with how well your computer works. But instead, it has more to do with, do you like fans? You know, regardless if they do anything. Oh, they spin and they're pretty. Okay, that's the reason why you're buying it. I don't have a business customer ever in the history of my business, in the history of working at the corporations I've worked at, that had any interest in spending any more for the computer than what was absolutely necessary. No liquid coolers, no RGB, no unnecessary fans, no thermal paste replacements, never, never. So if you want to consider that for your build, then make your decision that's right for you. But I'm explaining why I do it the way I do it, right? And if you want to do that, you understand why. But if you don't want to do it, you understand why. But what I don't want you to do is to do something that you think you have to do because based on all the enthusiast videos who didn't make it clear, it's not necessary. It's a preference, not a priority. So with that out of the way, the case looks pretty basic. I mean, it's pretty wide open here. We can take this other panel off so we can see all the way through. I'm sure there must be a way to attach a hard drive to it. I'm going to guess that's behind the motherboard tray. Now, I don't really use mechanical hard drives anymore, except in big storage arrays like network attached storage. These NVMe drives are so inexpensive and they're so much faster. They're so much more reliable. They use a lot less power and they're perfectly silent. The average lifespan on one of these is about 70 years. The average lifespan on a hard disk drive, somewhere around, well, it used to be 5 years. They're better today, but because they have moving parts, the moving parts do eventually fail. And these fail for other reasons besides wear. Like 70 years is about how long it would take to wear one of these out. But if you had a power spike or just a bizarre controller failure, I mean, that does happen. But as long as you have a backup, you've got bulletproof armor on and it doesn't matter. So many people don't make backups, and don't get me started on it. It's just the level of ignorance and denial from victims is profound. They just absolutely refuse to think it's ever going to happen to them. Or they think, I better back up because I'm going to upgrade something. It's a terrible reason. It's a terrible reason to back up. You should be backing up for what you don't expect. It's the unexpected that's going to cause all of your data loss. It's not the, oh, well, what if my Windows 11 upgrade doesn't go well? I better back up. What if tomorrow your computer doesn't turn on and you don't know why? You better back up. See what I'm getting at? The reason is you don't have a reason. You don't know. Not because you anticipate it, because of an upgrade. I'm about to do something, so I better prepare for it. No, you're about to use the computer. Just if you have anything important on the computer, make a copy of it somewhere else. We call it a backup. That's all. It's really easy. It takes 2 minutes. If you can't be bothered, I don't want to hear the people saying they're victims anymore. After 34 years of it and talking till I'm blue in the face, people don't listen until it affects them. Too many people don't. I hope you're not one of them. The best thing you can have is backups you don't need. That is the best case scenario. I made backups and I never needed them. Fantastic. That's awesome. The alternative to that could put you out of a business, right? It can affect your life in your emotional state. They're not comparable things. Not a big sacrifice to make a backup, but it could be if you don't. Okay, where's that soapbox? I'm so tired of it. I cannot believe, I'm going to keep going. I can't believe how busy $300 data recovery is. He's a fantastic service. He's a great guy and he does great work. Prices are better than anybody else in that line of industry. He should not have any business. I asked him that very question. If people made backups, why would they need to send their drives in for data recovery? His answer, they wouldn't. And how busy are you? I'm working 10 hours a day, Carey. And this has been going on how many years? I've been in business since, 2008 or whatever it was. And nothing, no, if anything, it's gotten busier. I don't know what to say. Let's see, what else do we have in here? We got our umbilicals. What is this? Oh, there's a power extension. I see. Okay. So back here is where the power goes in, and then there's an extension, essentially, that runs along from the back through here. It's wire tied down, and this will plug into the back of the power supply. That's going to mount behind this front screen. The only downside to that is you don't have access to your on and off button on the power supply like you would in the back. But if you plug it into a surge protector that you can flip off and on with a switch, or you simply just pull the power from it. Do we have a reset button on here? Yeah, that's the other thing. If you don't have a reset button, at least you could always, on most cases, reach around and flip the power supply off. So at the very least, if a case designer is going to enclose your power supply where you have to take off a panel just to hit a power switch, likely a reset button overrides the necessity for having to hit the power switch. So I appreciate they gave us one or the other. Sometimes you get both. You get the power supply in the back and a reset switch. The problem is a lot of new case designs are removing the reset switch. Thank goodness they didn't do that in this case, because then you're having to physically unplug the power cable in such a scenario where you have to reset the computer, or again, you'd have to flip a switch off on a power surge protector that it's plugged into. So MONTECH did a good job thinking of that. Thank you. I'll tell you that, I like that right now. Otherwise, if you're not going to give the reset switch, then put the power supply in the back for those reasons. These are things a tech thinks about, a support technician. We have to think about how are we going to get in there, how are we going to maintain this. If I can have a customer simply push a button and that prevents me from having to get in the car and drive for a half an hour to get to the customer's location, or even if I'm in a corporation and I have to go to the 3rd floor of building B, that's a long walk to push a button. Or, we're not necessarily going to have employees pulling out cables and wires. That's something IT department likely has to do for company policy, but the customer can push a button. So that's a good design. Everything else about the case seems pretty well designed. The little sled feet underneath are pretty interesting. There's little rubber feet here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 PCIe slots. So that tells you that this is a micro ATX case by simply counting the slots. If we had 7, that would be full-size ATX and the case would be much bigger. Sometimes when you're looking at photos online and you're not sure what size the case is, there's usually a marketing photo that shows the slots and just count them. If it only has 2, it's mini ITX. If it has 5, it's micro ATX. If it has 7, it's ATX. Up front, we have 2 USB Type A's and a USB Type C. I like to see that on a modern case. And this leather continues on the front. Yeah. Quality seems pretty good. Not the sturdiest, not the weakest. It falls somewhere in the middle, but that also makes it lighter and more transportable since it has a handle that needs to be considered. So all in all, I like what I see so far. We'll put the stuff over here for now, and let's start prepping our motherboard. Let me take a look in the chat and see what comments and questions we have, if any. It does appear some people are complaining of a video being choppy. I don't see anything on our side as far as like our cameras and such. Everything's smooth for me, but I do see that OBS is dropping frames. That usually indicates a networking issue with YouTube servers or with our own Wi-Fi. The only difference is that when testing our own Wi-Fi, it seems to be fine. I think it's the connection with YouTube servers, and the only thing I can do to address this would be to temporarily stop and restart the broadcast. Let me try one time. You guys might have to refresh, but we're not going to lose the feed. In other words, it's not going to create another video. Rather than deal with this, and bear in mind, I record all of these videos locally, and I guarantee the recording doesn't jump or skip. That's how I know it's not on us. However, if we're still just getting started with the motherboard prep, I'd hate for that to be happening. So I'm going to interrupt the feed here for a moment.
Things have been great for at least about 5 to 10.
Oh, now it's good?
Yeah. Let's hold off.
You want to hold off?
Hold off for a little bit.
Okay. Well, let me know if it starts up again.
Yeah.
I know there's a delay in the chat from what they're experiencing and when I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
And okay, let me know.
Seems okay.
All right, so we can always stop the broadcast, shut down OBS, restart it, and restart the broadcast without losing the video itself. Without losing the... If I end the broadcast, then the video is sealed shut, and then I have to create a new video with a new title. But if I stop the stream while leaving the broadcast up, I can restart OBS and then reconnect to that stream and then continue the video. That's how that works behind the scenes. And what Al says, YouTube is having trouble with other live channel. Yeah, okay, well, it's Friday. Let me scroll through and see what I've been missing here. I don't intentionally mean to be ignoring you guys. I just have an agenda, that some things I want to say, and make sure I don't get interrupted off that track of thought. Mats Olof joins us from Sweden and says hello. Welcome in, Mats Olof. Charlie Purdy with $10 says, I think this will be a nice build. Nick Caffrey with €5 super chat says hello. Thank you guys for the super chat contributions and your memberships. And Samuel Kowalski joins us, and Bajan Guy says hello. Planet Krause with a $5 super chat on his YouTube channel where he edits his videos. He says, I make mistakes and sometimes show them in my videos. I'm human. So you say. I think you may be an AI chatbot. Planet Kryos is a deep fake. Prove it otherwise. I kid, it's a joke. All right, I know Planet Kryos knows that, but some of the viewers may think I'm serious. Let's see, scrolling. You could try, if your video's buffering or skipping at all, if you're in 4K mode, drop it to 1080. There's really not much difference in a video like this. Just to try that, to see if it makes the video any smoother if you have that problem throughout the feed. David Graham said the choppiness is gone. YouTube finished the back end updating. Yeah, maybe. A lot of people saying they do their backups regularly. That is music to my ears. Let's see. Gary Tatum just renewed membership. Now a member for 32 months. He says, I'm just needlessly flaunting my membership. The runway is all yours, my friend. Flaunt away, I say. If you got it, flaunt it. Steve Chappelle said he'd like to see a review on one of the Ugreen NASs. I'm not reviewing them yet because they're so new. I think that the biggest problem we're going to have with an introduction for a company entering the NAS market is we've already got polished, matured Synology QNAP and ASUS in that space. If you want to build something yourself with TrueNAS, or I can't think of some of these other ones, MediaBox, whatever it's called, you can use anything you want. There's plenty of empty project boxes out there. We don't do project boxes for businesses. There's too much on the line. Ugreen is probably good hardware. The concern is the operating system. And look at TerraMaster. So TerraMaster, they've been in the business selling NASs for a few years now. And only now, in TerraMaster OS or TOS version 6, has it become a viable, serious competitor to Synology's DSM, their disk station manager, or QNAP's, what do they call theirs? Is it QoS? I can't remember. But I would say Synology and QNAP are the most polished. Nobody's going to come out the door polished. Just not the way products work. They got to collect on their investment from the research and development for the hardware. reinvested back into the company and polished the hardware and especially the software with regards to a NAS. Or you can just build your own NAS, in which case you can download some open source free NAS software if your time is worth nothing and you like to play. Right now, personally, I think it's too early for Ugreen. Give them a year or two and we'll take a look. We did the same thing with TerraMaster. When TerraMaster first came out, they need to have time to develop their operating system. If, on the other hand, what they're building is just a NAS box and you have to provide your own operating system, that is a home hobbyist, home lab activity, not for anybody who takes a business seriously. So the reason is about support and being able to keep a system up and running and to be able to call somebody if things go wrong. So with all that in mind, you know, we are focused on business. But I appreciate the suggestion. And if there's other products you'd like to see reviewed or introduced to you, please don't hesitate to make the recommendation. Even if it's something I tell you, sorry, we won't do that yet. I'll tell you why. But don't let that in any way discourage you, please. We want to hear your recommendations. I mean, if I had a slew of people all wanting me to do Ugreen despite my reservations, I will bow to the pressure. That's why you see RGB on this channel. Mark Gaines with a 10-pound super chat. Mark joins us from Northern Ireland. Thank you, Mark. He says, my internet was down. I hope you received my Amazon gift card, Carey. You know, I have not checked my phone. So let's do that now and we'll start prepping a board. Cheers, Mark. Good to see you, my friend. Get that out of the way. Ah, there it is. Mark Gaines sent an Amazon gift card for $100. Right on. Thank you, Mark. Certainly appreciate those contributions. You know, $100 is a lot of money. We don't take it lightly. And the very least we can do is say thank you and acknowledge that contribution because, well, quite frankly, we ran out of Amazon gift card money last week, but you know, I still go to like PayPal contributions for anything we need. So when I needed a cooler for this, and one of the reasons it arrived later, it still hasn't arrived yet, is I'm so accustomed to using Amazon gift card money, I had to go to a different funding source, which is fine. But it is appreciated and it is being used, as you can see. So if you're wondering where that money goes, there's $1,000 basically. Let's start prepping the board. Enough on the money stuff. It's an ugly necessity for us to be independent. And without you guys providing us the support, we're just going to end up making commercials like everybody else. So we're not making videos at all. Because personally, I don't want to make commercials. I don't mind endorsing something I believe in. That's one thing. But just day after day, I'm just endorsing everything because that pays the bills. Not doing it. All right, so brand new 860 chipset. AMD's equivalent is the 850. Same thing when AMD's X870 came out. That was their high-end board with their latest, 9000 series chips. All top dollar. And if you got money, hey, wish I was you. But for the rest of us, probably won't notice any difference between an 860 and an Z890 versus, on the AMD side, an X870 versus an X850. These numbers get really convoluted after a while. So I apologize in my hesitation there, but year after year of new model numbers and still trying to remember the ones of years prior. And the older I get, it's getting difficult. I'm going to have to start getting a cheat sheet about the size of this wall with all the different CPU, GPU, motherboard models, chipset models. Got a Wi-Fi antenna. It's often good to get Wi-Fi built into a micro ATX board because you have a limited amount of expansion slots. If you're going to use one of those expansion slots for a GPU, you're not going to have like maybe 1 or 2 slots left. And if you use one of those for Wi-Fi, then like if you're me and you need a video capture card in there, you've maxed it out. You can't put anything else in there. So if you make sure you get a motherboard with Wi-Fi on it, if it's micro ATX, even if you don't need it, it's better to have it and not need it than the other way around. Because, you know, it is portable. It's designed to be moved around. So ideally, anything portable has Wi-Fi. That should be implied. But nothing stops us from putting a regular motherboard, micro ATX board without Wi-Fi in this and still have a carrying handle and still be portable. Maybe you don't intend to make it portable. You don't have to put the carrying handle on it if you don't want to. But you also didn't need to buy a portable computer if you weren't going to make it portable. Maybe you just like the way it looks. I don't know why people buy stuff. It's not always logical. Now this motherboard, if you noticed, I took the razor blade out and I opened this box for the very first time. We do everything live, unscripted and unrehearsed. I've never seen this motherboard before in my life. There's nothing up my sleeves. You and I have never met before. I sound like a magician. Again, I've been doing this so long, it doesn't matter. Give me any motherboard, I don't care. It's fine, we'll figure it out. The likelihood of getting parts that are not working, well, sometimes I get that email and they say, well, how often do you get RAM that doesn't work? How often do you get motherboards that don't work? How often do you get a power supply that doesn't work? You're watching live, how often do you see it? It's rare. Manufacturing has improved so much today with robotics and automation. They can run 24/7. Robots don't have moods. They don't get sick. They don't try and sabotage the company. And every bit of work they do from the minute they start work to the minute they're shut down is precisely the same every single time. So overall, manufacturing quality in automation, because of automation, has improved, if I had to guess, by at least 40%. We used to get many more dead on arrival products or DOA products back when I first started this channel in 2008, 2009, 2010. Somewhere around 2013, 2014, we started to see the shift. And now in 2025, it's pretty darn rare. Still happens, but remember the scale. Remember, I'm not just ordering one power supply every 4 years. I've gone through, since the first of this year, I've gone through at least 4 power supplies. So far, everything's fine. If that continues by the end of this year, we will have gone through about 50 of them. I'll be surprised if any of them are bad. Could happen. It's the exception now, not the norm. Anyway, so we've got a SATA port. We've got a M.2 standoff and screw. What is in here? Oh, I think this is just a little rubber foot. If your SSD is kind of sitting slanted, you could put it on a little cushiony foot. And that's another little cushiony foot for your M.2. Those are optional if you want to use them. We've got a manual. Hey, that's pretty cool. ASUS web storage. Stickers. People want to know. Carey, they say, how can I make my computer go faster? Well, did you put the stickers on it? Because if you didn't put the stickers on it, look, if you watch a race, a professional automobile race, have you ever seen a car win a race that didn't have stickers on it? I rest my case. Suddenly I'm a teenage girl and I want to put stickers on everything. Where's my sticker book? I'm going to build on the motherboard box because I don't want to scratch up the counter. Do stickers really make it go faster? No. It's called sarcasm. Does sarcasm make it go faster? Yes. I'm just amusing myself. The Wi-Fi antenna and the SATA cables, we're not going to use those in the build today. Toss those in there. Keep in mind, some micro ATX boards may only give you 2 memory slots. This one gives us a full 4, just like a regular ATX size, full-size motherboard. We've got the plastic here that's meant to come off to keep things from getting scratched in shipping. Gosh, forbid that, you know, a company logo gets scratched. The rest of the motherboard's not protected. You know, the circuits, the important stuff, we don't protect that. Company logos, any smooth surface, people will return perfectly good working items because it's got a little mark on it right here in the back where no one would see it. Yes, people do that. So now we all have to deal with more stickers. Okay, these little rubber feet, we're not going to use these either. So all I have are the M.2s here, and I'm not quite sure how many M.2 slots this board has. Let's try going over to camera 2. See if we get a close-up of this. Is this going to work? Hey, it works. Okay, so here's the board. Memory slots. The 2 slots are a different color. That's for one channel and the other channel. 1 stick of RAM in each color to enable dual channel, which the computer will work not in dual channel. It'll work better if it's in dual channel. That'll make a bigger difference in performance than stickers, by the way. Then what else do we got? We've got an M.2 slot here and something under here. On the back, we've got lots of USB ports, Type-C, DisplayPort out, HDMI out. These are the nubs for the Wi-Fi antennas. I think these are the new ASUS style click-on. So you don't have to tighten them down like the old school. I guess that's a positive and a negative, right? The positive side of that is it's way easier. Snap it on and get on with life. The downside is if you're going on Amazon to buy new antennas, finding ones that click on, that's an ASUS design. You probably have to get them from ASUS, but I don't know how often you break antennas. That's our audio. We got lots of audio options here. And we've got, what else? Where's my glasses? I need my glasses here so I can see what ports we've got. Oh, wow, this thing has got fan header, fan header, fan header, USB 2, SATA ports, front panel, USB 3, USB Type-C, power. I'm assuming this is DDR5, is it? That's how much attention I was paying. This should be DDR5. It's PCIe 5.0, Wi-Fi 7 is built in. With Aura Sync, if you want RGB, you can sync it with ASUS Aura software. So what was I was saying? Fan header, fan header, fan header. Fan header, fan header, fan header. 6 fan headers on this tiny little board. That's about 3 more than you should need. But, you know, look, I don't know what you need. It may not be something I can help you with. But you shouldn't be short of any fan headers on a board like this. Very well equipped. But for 200 bucks, it should be. Well, we have this thing here. This is a quick release. So if you put a GPU in here, instead of trying to get your GPU out with a latch that takes, I don't know, the patience of a saint and the dexterity of a raccoon, this is just a quick disconnect. You just push this down, it releases your graphics card. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. You watch, all the other board manufacturers are going to start copying that. ASUS is usually the innovative one that everybody else copies. I've heard about people that constantly take their graphics card in and out, that there's a version of the quick disconnect that apparently is scratching the end of the connector. But I mean, you'd have to do that over and over and over again. And that's a problem that goes deeper than a connector. That's more of a personal problem, I think. I'm curious what's under here. There's some symbols. I don't know what they mean. I see some symbols. And yeah, we could read the documentation, but you know, that's so 2000s. I'm a 1980s Gen X kid. All right? I'm a latchkey kid. We don't need no stinking directions. And nobody ever helped us. They said, hey, get out of the house. Don't come back till the streetlights are on, or we're going to give you chores to do. And, you know, if you get bullied or beaten up along the way, just be home for dinner. There was no help. So because of that, it has made a lot of us Gen Xers a bit like Damascus steel in that we've been tempered by being beaten unsupervised and learning how to survive. And that has carried with me throughout my adult age. And so I much prefer to figure things out on my own. I find it much more satisfying and much more self-reliant than having to interpret poorly written directions. And we've got two M.2s here plus an M.2 underneath here. Now, none of these heat sinks are particularly thick. That implies to me, again, without reading directions, but I'll verify, this is likely not a Gen 5 NVMe slot, even though it's a Gen 5 PCIe slot. If this were a Gen 5 NVMe slot, that is a woefully inadequate heatsink. That's why I think that's going to be Gen 4, just based on the size of the heatsink. And I'm going to put a Gen 4 drive in it anyway. I'm not going to spend twice the amount of money for the same capacity so I can see bigger numbers on benchmarks, but Windows still takes the same amount of time to load. That's just stealing from you folks. I'm just telling you, you're being robbed. Well, you're voluntarily giving your money away for items that make your benchmarks look better, but the actual usage of the computer for most of you won't be noticeable one way or the other. But the notice in your bank account will absolutely be noticeable. If I look on the box, this might indicate what, right here, storage. It says storage. What does it say? Let me turn it around so I can see it. It says PCIe 5. Wow. Well, that scares me. So this first slot is supposed to be Gen 5. But that heatsink is no bigger than this one as far as thickness. And if you look at any of the ASRock boards we've done with Gen 5, and if you know anything about Gen 5 NVMe, it gets really, really, really hot. Hot is okay. Really hot, really, really, really hot is not okay. I don't know how well that's going to perform. That scares me. I don't know what testing they did on that, but that scares me. Also, one of the things you need to know about ASUS, they have these quick connects. So while they give us the little standoff and screw, that's old school, because today you just bend this little latch back, you put your NVMe drive in, it clicks in, and you're done. That's it. That's all it takes. We demonstrated this on the ASUS Z890 board. What a pleasure that was we're working on, compared to hooking up SATA cables, power cables, 4 screws to hold in a 2.5 or 3.5 inch drive. Then you got the cable management. What a pain in the butt. This is faster, quieter, uses less power, and lasts much, much longer. Has, you know, easily 10 times the life of a mechanical drive. And the installation couldn't be any simpler. Welcome to the evolution of technology. The future is looking good. Soon, I won't even have to do this anymore. It'll just all be built into the board. We'll have the whole system on a chip. Storage, RAM, everything will just be on a board. Okay, so let's go back to camera 1 here. Overall, I like this board. It looks good. I like the layout and the design. We're not going to put additional drives in this today, but we will put one in the main slot here. Even though it's a Gen 4 NVMe, it will work in a Gen 5, so will a Gen 3. And I like to build all my systems the same. I don't want to use one of the Gen 4 slots for the Gen 4 NVMe, because in the future, if I have to work on this, I'm going to think it's under here, because I would have done it differently than I do all my others. So they all go in the same. If a customer wants a Gen 5 upgrade, we're going to have to reinstall the operating system regardless of where this drive is located, because you always want your fastest drive to be your boot drive. Otherwise, what's the point? And again, to clear up any confusion, we have seen some product from ASUS, 2, that they've sent us for free. This was for free. We paid for it. And of the board's choices that we had, I decided I wanted a micro ATX board as black as possible to match this case with Wi-Fi at the cheapest price. And this was the one that fit what I demanded. I could have put a cheaper board in here, but it wouldn't have looked as good. And because we have that window, you know, this is a consideration that I did not have when I built computers in the 90s and early 2000s. If you wanted a case window, you got a Sawzall and you did it yourself. It was very much a modder community thing. So nobody really, the customers never, whether residential or business, never looked inside. And if they did, it was just like looking under the hood of a car. But even nowadays, when you look under the hood of a car, they cover the top of the engine with a plastic piece so you can't see the engine. And I remember asking car salesmen, why do they do that? Oh, people don't like the way the engine looks. You know, this makes it look more elegant. Well, isn't that what the hood's job is for? Like, isn't the purpose of dropping the hood so you don't... If I open the hood, I'm doing that so I can see the engine. Now you've covered the engine with a piece of plastic. Sometimes that piece of plastic gets in the way. There are cars where that whole piece of plastic has to come off for you to just put oil in the car. Regular maintenance items. Preposterous. I mean, if you're planning on driving your car around with the hood open, it looks great. I don't know what's going on in the world today. Just seems like an added expense. One more thing that's going to be on the repair bill. You know, if the car gets into an accident, it's got to get replaced. It's totally unnecessary. It's an aesthetic item that's hidden under the hood that you wouldn't normally see unless you were working on the engine. And if you're working on the engine, it's one more thing you've got to get off. So I don't know. But it's kind of like that. Peter VZ with a €2 super chat. Thank you, Peter. Mecha Cameron says, does Carey cuss off camera? Like a sailor. We do try to be professional, okay? So if I'm working on something and a customer's not around, yeah, I can embarrass a sailor. But if I'm working with customers or I'm trying to present myself in a professional manner, I try to make an effort to exhibit self-control and self-awareness. But every once in a while, something might happen that surprises me. And in that case, I can't control my reaction, right? At that point, if something happens, there's only one appropriate reaction, and hopefully things don't go that bad. That's the best you could hope for. So I don't think we're going to need this screw here, but let me just check under the M.2 slot. Make sure that has the quick disconnect underneath there. We'll just throw the NVMe drive in here real quick. Yeah, that also has the quick disconnect. So let's go back to the close-up camera. Let's go to that camera right there. And let's get this ORICO drive out of the box. This is the one we previously tested, so the tape has already been cut. Hopefully I reset this drive like I showed you how in my video. They've included a heatsink for this, which is weird. I guess some motherboards don't have heatsinks, in which case you always choose the motherboard heatsink for its superiority in both aesthetics and cooling principles over a default one that comes with a NVMe. But you can save money on NVMe drive that does not include the added cost of a heatsink. If you don't need the heatsink, you could probably need the money you're saving. Otherwise, we're not using that. And so check this out. I'm just so impressed with ASUS's installation method here. We slide this in no differently than any other NVMe drive. And we just push it down. We're done. That's it. You want to take it out, you push this little lever down and take it out. Hello? Did you blink? Did you miss it? In, down. That's it. We peel the tape off, or the film rather, off the thermal tape on the bottom of the heatsink so we get good thermal transfer. A lot of people don't remove this film. It has to come off or just don't work. And then the M.2 writing goes down like that. Just put this right there. So that is about an hour and 25 minutes in this video. And that is, I think, approximately 3 minutes of work. But if you don't understand why you're doing the work, and you're just going to follow along blindly like a robot, this is not the channel for you. I want to teach you how to think critically and how to make the decisions that are right for you. And because I don't know you, I don't know what's right for you. But if I explain to you all the reasoning behind my decisions, I'm hoping that empowers you with knowledge to make the right decisions the first time for your needs, budget, expectations, and values. But that couldn't be easier. I mean, maybe the heatsink could click on like it did on the ProArt. You know, we're going to get there. That'll all trickle down. I can't get this off. Come on. Now it's stuck on me. Go away. All right. CPU time. Let's just take this and this and this and this. We'll stick it over here for now. All the spare parts, spare screws, they'll go in the motherboard box because, you know, a customer might want to make changes. This is the new Intel Ultra 5. This is a $320 CPU. Does not include a heatsink. It's never been opened. I don't think we've ever built an Ultra 5 before. And it wouldn't make sense to put an Ultra 5 on a Z890 chipset. It's a mid-range CPU, should go on a mid-range board. High-end CPU goes on a high-end board. Not that you have to, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense doing it any other way. It's sort of like wanting to put brand new rims on an 86 Toyota. I mean, I don't know. I suppose you could. Just not sure why. Documentation, go faster sticker. Put that with the other stickers. And then this should just, you know, you've got some little tabs here. If you pull these tabs out, and then the whole thing should just lift up. And that's your $300 right there. Take this out. Open this up. Lift this back. You can follow the gold triangles. You can look for the notches, or you can simply make sure all the text on the CPU faces all the text. Like here on the motherboard, it says Tough Gaming. You see the direction of that text. We match the direction of all the text moving the same way. That's almost a universal truth. And it'd be very unusual for you to have anything different than that. Possible, but not likely. We'll take this little plastic cover off. We'll save that in case we ever have to send the board back for warranty. We want to take the CPU out and we need to cover those pins up, or our warranty will be void. ASUS likes to use this little lever protector that needs to come off and thrown into the recycle bin. And then that installs our CPU. Pretty simple. So CPU is installed and our storage is installed. You'll notice on the RAM, only one side of the RAM latch is open, the other side doesn't. That's because if this side opened, it would hit a graphics card and prevent it from opening all the way without first having to take your graphics card out. That's why only one side opens on some motherboards. If this PCIe slot here was moved further down, or the RAM was moved further up, they would not intersect. But as long as these latches don't move, they do not intersect, and that's why the latches don't move. So we're going to use this RAM right here. This is TCreate DDR5. And is this new? Have I opened this before? I've opened this before. I wanted black RAM with no RGB to match the black motherboard in the black case. That's how I came up with this. I didn't want 16 because I felt 16 gigs of RAM would be inadequate for the rest of the system, and anything more than 32 would have been overkill. So I'm trying to find balance in both budget, looks, performance, reliability. We have a go faster sticker. Man, this, with all those stickers, this thing ought to be a rocket ship. Usually on most motherboards, if you have 4 memory sockets, regardless of DDR4 or 5, usually you skip. You do not start with the first RAM socket closest to the CPU. We're going to use the gray sockets, and that's almost universal among all motherboard manufacturers, although the color may not be gray. Even if all of these sockets were black, we generally skip the slot. If we're only using 2 sticks, you skip the slot closest to the CPU. Seat that in gently, make sure it's in the track and seated. Then with pressure, 1 thumb and the other thumb. That's it. We're going to take the last memory module here. We're going to skip the next memory socket and go to the one at the far edge, closest to the end of the motherboard. And again, almost universal amongst ASUS, ASRock, MSI, Gigabyte. If you're not sure, check your documentation. But this is often considered channel 1 or channel A, and they're 1 socket apart. And you start, you can work your way this way if it makes more sense. Start with the socket nearest the edge of the board, skip 1, and then do the next one. And that should leave a socket nearest to the CPU. One way or the other, get you the same result, whatever makes most sense for you. So that's our RAM, our storage, our CPU, and I have installed, and Amazon has still not delivered our cooler. So for the cooler, I wanted to order the Mugen 6. What you need to understand about the Ultra 5 is that this is a 125 watt CPU. So while I've seen some like Thermalright coolers for $18 that claim to be able to cool a TDP of 125 watts, that's cutting it a little close for me. I mean, it might be fine under browsing the web and basic stuff, but running Cinebench or a heavy workload on it, oh, I don't feel comfortable with even testing that, quite frankly. And so I thought, well, you know, I'll get the Mugen 6. Now, the Mugen 6 Black Edition, so they do make a silver one, but I don't want it silver. But the Black Edition comes with 2 fans, but I don't want 2 fans. And wouldn't you know, they only sell the Black Edition with 2 fans. So I'm going to order it, or I have ordered it with the 2 fans, but I'm not going to put both fans on. You guys that think that makes a difference, it makes maybe 6 degrees or 7 degrees of cooling performance difference at the most. This is never going to get that hot. Now, if we were doing an Ultra 7 or an Ultra 9, I'd put both fans on. But for an Ultra 5, that 6 or 7 degrees won't make any difference because we're never going to get that hot to begin with, unless I'm wrong, and I'll put the other fan on. But my intention is to leave the second fan off of it. Regardless, we paid for it. We also paid for an AMD mounting kit. We're not using that either, right? The coolers come with mounting kits for all different kinds of CPUs, but only one of them works for your CPU. So it's not unusual to have extra parts you paid for that you don't need. If you can avoid it, such as the case of a heatsink coming with your NVMe drive that you don't need, you can have the option of ordering it without the heatsink, and typically for several dollars less money. But when it comes to ordering the cooler, if I could have ordered the Black Edition with a single fan, I would have. The only single fan version Mugen makes of the Mugen 6 is silver. I have one right here. I don't want a silver fan in a black computer. I want black RAM with a black motherboard, very little RGB, if any at all. I'd be fine without it, because there's a case window and you can look in. We're going to have black cabling with a black power supply. That's it. We want it to look good. And honestly, I probably could have saved $100 on this build by buying a cheaper motherboard that didn't color match. On the other hand, I also could have bought a $50 case instead of a $90 case if the aesthetics didn't matter to me. So you don't have to do it this way, but I'm explaining the reasoning and the logic. The NVMe drive is yellow, but it's hidden under a heatsink. Who cares what color it is? If you can see it, I want it to match. Like, for all you know, my underwear doesn't match my outfit because you can't see it. Let's keep it that way. All right. Let me just clear the desk. This we keep. This we keep. This is all the spare stuff for the NVMe, which doesn't need to go. But the documentation and the Go Faster sticker, yeah, customer might want that. Okay, this piece is junk. I guess we can start putting our power supply in. I'm just hoping to hear an Amazon delivery before we're doing it. It could arrive 3 hours from now, for all I know. So I could also just use the silver Mugen 6 or something else just to cool it for now. Just to have something. In fact, I could probably put the Intel laminar cooler on there. But I think the laminar is only good for 65 watts. So it's fine, you know, going to the desktop. We definitely wouldn't want to run Cinebench or anything with it on there. We still want to update the BIOS on this. I've already downloaded the BIOS and get Windows 11 installed on it as well with all the updates. The reason I went with the 650 watt bronze power supplies, these were about $55 on Amazon when I bought them. Now they've gone to $70. And I knew, you know, power supplies, they don't fluctuate much in price. And I will use them. They don't go bad, they don't go stale. And they don't depreciate in value the way CPUs, RAM, and storage and motherboards do. So cases and power supplies are a pretty safe investment to keep in inventory as a computer shop owner. RAM, storage, CPUs, and motherboards, they're a terrible investment because whatever you paid for it, when you go to sell it, it likely sells for a lot less. And your customers might, you know, if they do their research, say, why are you overcharging me for this board? You're like, I'm not. I'm selling it to you for what I paid for it. Well, where did you buy it? Because you could buy it for $30 less. If that's true, I think you're lying. No, I bought it 6 months ago. Well, then it's old. No, it's brand new. It's never been used. It's the exact same board. It's just depreciated, that's all. Well, then you need to sell it to me and match the price. Great. Like I wasn't making any money before. I can't even break even. Now it's going to cost me money to sell you the board. That's why you don't overbuy parts. Other than power supplies and cases, you better get ready to sell those other things quickly. And let's get this opened up. I'm not done with my razor. That's nice. It's got holes that you can, like a bowling ball, reach in and pull the box out. I never see that. Here, take that. Oh, get up, lady. I didn't hit you that hard. All right. Oh, good documentation. Screws. They're taped on the underside, so it's easy to miss that. EVGA likes to do that. Power cable. Good to have one of those. Oh, the cooler just arrived. All right. I'll tell you what. I will trade you one empty power supply box
For a completely full and heavier cooler.
I'm an unboxing madman. There it is. Now that's what you call pacing yourself.
The floor is covered.
Lemon pledge. There, you forgot something. Oh, that was
Thank you.
weak.
Look how kind you are.
That was weak. Turn my... Just look around the floor. There's an empty box right there. Right there. We normally do cleanup after show.
Trying to keep the pathway.
Those are power supply screws. Okay, power supply. I also like how shallow this power supply is, especially considering it's going to be sitting up like this inside of the case. That means there's a lot more room for the cables between the bottom of the power supply and the bottom of the case. I actually remember this now. Something I liked about this BP650 was it's not as long as a regular power supply. And some of the more heavier wattage power supplies, they go even further. In which case, when you have to mount a power supply like this, you got to keep in mind how long the power supply is, that there's going to be room for the cables to get between the bottom of the power supply and the bottom of the case. That is a consideration you need to have with a case like this. And a regular size power supply would have fit, but you know, it's not like you can ever have too much space. I think the extra space is welcome. The power cable, we'll keep it in the motherboard box so you don't forget about that later. Okay, so this is the Mugen 6. Now you haven't seen me use a lot of these air coolers because lately everything's been about aesthetics. It's been about liquid coolers, not because of their cooling properties necessarily, although in the case of like the Z890 board with the Ultra 9, or you know, if we're doing a really high-end CPU, we're usually doing a nice visually stunning case where anything other than a liquid cooler detracts from the look of the case. Especially these big aquarium cases, you're going to show off what, a Noctua D15, DH15, whatever it's called, NHD15, and all you're going to see is just a big metal heatsink. How sexy is that? So on this case, this will accept a liquid cooler, but this CPU at 125 watts doesn't need a liquid cooler, and we're not going for the flashiness. We're going for professional subtleties, and we want it to have a business class. We want this classy. And I think this fits the bill perfectly for that. There's no other reason you haven't seen me use these. It's purely been aesthetics. For the price, liquid coolers have come way down. I'm seeing liquid coolers selling for half the price of a Noctua cooler. A Noctua air cooler can cost more than twice what a liquid cooler would cost. It's your money. And they're not even attractive in my opinion. So Scythe is still at it, the Mugen 5. I used to use a lot of those, especially for business clients. And we initially were doing silver ones, and then they came out with a black edition, which looked a lot better, even though my clients' cases don't have any windows. I still preferred to pay the extra $5. Same cooler, different color, $5 more. But for $5, you know, it's not like I can't pay the rent that month. So here's our box of installation mounting stuff. We've got a fan. Remember, we're only going to use one fan on this. If I serve you food, do you feel obligated to eat everything on the plate? Some people are like, it comes with 2 fans. You should use 2 fans. I got a tank of gas. I'm not going home until it's empty. I mean, come on. At the end of the day, use your judgment. I don't care how many fans you use. I said, you know, I really want this cooler with 1 fan. Boy, I really wish they sold it. Then I went, wait a minute, they do. Just leave 1 fan off, Carey. It took me a while to get there. Just telling you. You missed a box. All right, so what's changed in the Mugen 5 and the Mugen 6 is the number of fins. There are much more fins on this now, and they're not all the same level, so it's much more difficult to bend them. Some stick out further, and then one's recessed, sticks out further, one's recessed. And so now it's much more difficult to damage the fins because aesthetically it's not pleasing to look at. You'll see this bracket on many coolers. You have to put this on by yourself. This has already been done for you by Mugen. I like that. And these are threaded holes. These aren't screws. So they're gonna, the part on the bracket is going to be a thread that these then, like a nut, screw onto. That's what tightens your cooler down. The fan, you know, we'll put a fan in a box. Nothing wrong with having a spare fan in case you get a flat. Or if I'm wrong, which never happens, except that one time, and that was a mistake. One fan is more than enough, especially with a big old 6 heat pipe, massive radiator here on an Ultra 5. This should be perfect and quiet and look great, and it's affordable. Did I justify the crap out of that? I'll keep going. Don't tempt me. We've got all of our, like a fan splitter mounting hardware instructions, all in that bag. And look, the good old, remember these? The old Mugen screwdriver. And that's used to get into this hole to align with the bolt down here to tighten this down. This one is going to be located underneath the fan. So this one, again, it helps to clear the radiator so you're not rubbing your knuckles against the side of the radiator, which also isn't good for the radiator. And that's why they include the screwdriver. And what's great is a standard Phillips #2 screwdriver that's not specifically computer related. You could stick this in your toolbox and use it on the car or the house. Any sort of work other than computers, it's a good screwdriver. Handle could be a little better, but I mean, it's at no additional cost. It comes with the cooler. It's not free, but it's at no additional cost with the cooler, so I'll take it. Okay, so to mount this, let's see what we got here. Documentation. Thermal compound. Oh, they changed the thermal compound and they're giving you a little thermal compound spreader. Interesting. Glasses time. I can't see. I can't see so good. Splitter, don't need that. Fan buckles. You're gonna need 2 of these. 2 per fan. We're only using 1 fan. 1, 2. Fan buckles. My shoe. Back in there. Put it over there. Oh, this is a very important bag. We'll put it over there. This is our back plate. Back plate goes on like this. However, it has some adjustments to these posts that stick out. I like how it says top and it says top. Which one's the top? It's saying either one is fine. They're both tops. There's a joke in there somewhere. We're not going there. Family-friendly show. Usually, whatever the latest socket type is the default that these are set in from the factory. So if you're using this on an older socket, 1700, 1200, 115X socket, you may have to adjust those inward or outward. But I think they're already, yeah, they're already pre-aligned. So that part's easy and done. And then, no and then. We've got a couple of brackets that go over the top. Now, when they look like parentheses, that's AMD. When they're straight across like this, with only, there's 2 different brackets here. One has 1 hole, and one has a wider hole and a separate hole. So there's actually 3 holes in the top. This is for the older socket design. This one that just has 1 hole on each end, that's for socket 1851. That's what we're using today. And this bracket is going to go on lengthwise. It's got a lip on it. That lip should face up and away from the cooler. We don't want the lip getting in the way of us tightening it down. And I'm just going to lay this right on top of where that lever is that I lifted to insert the CPU. Remember I had that little lever on, right? Hold on, let's go close up. On an Intel CPU, it's really easy to know where these go. This lever right here that I lifted up to put the CPU in, this goes right over that. Or not. We have a, oh, I know what the problem is. I can't put that in yet.
You check the phone.
Okay, so basically, these brackets here that have multiple holes, these are going to go back with parts we don't need in this bag. So we have these brackets, and we're going to need some little plastic standoffs so these brackets don't go too far down, because that's what was happening. We should not be hitting the capacitors. So in this bag, we're going to have a bunch of plastic standoffs right here. Let's open this up. See what we got in here. We have thumb screws. That's to hold the brackets down. We've got these standoffs. That's for like a socket 2011 Intel, which we're not using. What else do we have? We have these longer screws that are likely for AMD. And then we have the plastic standoffs I've been looking for. And those little plastic standoffs, take those out. And those are going to go right on top of these posts. Now, there's with Scythe's Mugen series, there's a rubber flat end here. That's the part that's going to make contact with your motherboard. There's a wider end that's just hard plastic that faces up. And you'll know because when you push it on, it's going to resist a little bit and you have to put a little force down. That also helps keep that back plate in position. If you were to try putting it on backwards, it just kind of falls in. It doesn't feel right. So the rubber side goes towards the board so as not to mark up your motherboard. Go over to camera 1 again here. Just like this. The brackets with the lip up will face each other, opposing each other symmetrically so that one goes over the lever and the other is a mirror image of it on the other side. And then finally, the thumb screws, which I put here, they just go hold the bracket on right here. And again, don't go gorilla tightening these down. It doesn't have to be that tight. Start them with your hand to make sure they're threaded straight, and then use the included driver, which is the exact right bit for those holes, for the size of the, oh, what's a word for it? The slot for the screwdriver is precisely designed for the screwdriver. It fits without any sort of play. It's the perfect fit so that you're less likely going to strip it or cam it out. So if possible, use the included screwdriver to avoid damaging the thumb screws or the heads of the screws. So we're just tightening these down to a point where they give us resistance. Once they give us resistance and they don't want to go anymore, and again, double check them, because sometimes when you tighten one side, the other side will loosen. That one's very tight. That one's very tight. That's it. Don't take it further than that. Finally, the last thing we have to do is apply thermal compound. We want the screw that's exposed going towards the RAM. It's going to sit just like this. The fan goes here, right here. If we want to add another fan, it'll go over here. But again, it's only going to make about a 6-degree difference in cooling. On an i5 processor, it's silly. You don't need it. You might want it, but you don't need it. Furthermore, you're adding noise, and it's not really benefiting you because the CPU will not run any better. It's already running at its best performance when it's running within temperature. So we'll get this hooked up and run Cinebench on it and put a real heavy resource load on it and see how hot it gets with one fan. And I'm telling you, I don't think we're going to break 85 on it. So adding an additional fan to bring it any lower won't make any difference. It just gives you another part to fail, another part you've got to wire manage, another part you have to hook up, and for no benefit. So just keep it as a spare. Fans do eventually fail, and if it does happen, you've already got the spare to rely on, as long as you know where you put it years earlier. I'm told to check my phone, so let's do that. Our friend Charlie Purdy sends an Amazon gift card. He says, this is for future content for a great community. I hope it helps to build up the fund. Very much so. Thank you so much, Charlie. We are working on a second build, but it's going to be pricey, and I'm not quite sure if it's worth doing. It'll be a micro ATX, only AMD instead of Intel, all white instead of black. And then I have to debate on the cooler. I'm looking at the Trix cooler. We already have one we haven't used, by the way, but not in white. The big Trix cooler is $350 just for the cooler. So and then the white power supply from Thermaltake is an 850 watt modular. It's $140. The case is $160. It's a micro ATX white Corsair 2500X. I kind of like it. It's got the wood grain look to it, but it's white and it's aquarium style, which also means it's big, and I don't know where I'm going to put it, but I also don't know that I want to spend that kind of money. So let me know your feedback and what you think of these ideas, and I appreciate all of your support and your friendship. Our good friend Charlie there, thank you so much. Alan Lindos, speaking of friends to the channel here, he goes, here's a #2 gift card. I doubled my usual amount to $14.77. What is it normally? $7.77. Thank you, Alan. Alan joins us here in the Phoenix area, and always good to see you. And again, a shout out to our friend Mark Gaines for his Amazon gift card as well. And of course, thanks to Mara for reminding me to check the phone. Okay, now normally when we've dealt with other cooler brands, especially like the Chinese manufacturers that aren't as well known, we run into old thermal compound issues. And what do? I reach in this drawer and I pull out the thermal compound that came with my Scythe cooler. So many Scythe coolers that I've installed. But don't let the size of the vial trick you. There's absolutely the same amount in both of these. So it actually makes more sense that Scythe has reduced their packaging. And this little plastic thermal compound spreader is the biggest waste of resources ever. What I don't like about these smaller tubes is they often put plastic on the end. Like when you buy a brand new ballpoint pen and it's got the little piece of plastic on it, until you pull that off, the pen doesn't write. Well, this plastic can be very difficult to remove. I don't see anywhere to pull it off. It's usually what I do is I grab my razor blade and very carefully I will cut into this. And I don't know, I mean, I understand they don't want this to spill out. There should be some kind of a pull handle or something so I can just tear and go. So this is the worst part of it. And I have a little PTSD because all the bad thermal compounds we've seen have almost universally come in these little tiny syringes. But I'm hoping Scythe has just changed the syringe and that we have the good thermal compound we're accustomed to from them. And there's one way to find out right now. Let's go to camera 2 here so you can see this good and close up. Here we go. Oh yeah, that's good. That's got a nice amount of viscosity to it. Not too much, not too little. Exactly what I expect from Scythe. So yeah, it's just the packaging changed. And then I'm going to step over here And I'm going to grab one of my nitrile gloves. These are powder-free, non-sterile. You pick these up, Harbor Freight Tools, Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's, home improvement stores. They're sold everywhere. They're very inexpensive. We don't use rubber gloves. We don't use vinyl gloves. We don't want to encourage the electrostatic discharge. So these are the best thing you can use. And look, I understand some people, they like putting a little smiley face down here or making a pattern. That's fine. You can do whatever you want. You can draw the Mona Lisa on here if you want to. What I like to do is I like to make sure the entire surface of the CPU is covered. And so I treat it like an oil painting. And the thermal compound is my paint. And what I'm doing is I'm simply painting like I would paint a bedroom, where I'm trying to avoid getting paint on any sort of under my windows or doorknobs, door hinges. I just want the paint on the wall. And if I can see through any of this, then either I haven't spread enough of it on there, or I've got it all like it's like when paint drips. If you put too much paint in one area, it'll start to drip. So you have to decide, did I just not put enough thermal compound on, or have I not spread it evenly? We want to see the entire top of the CPU, called the internal heat spreader. We want to see that entirely covered, but not drowning in thermal compound. Just like when you paint a wall, you want to see the color of the paint, but you don't want to see the paint running and dripping. I have a little spot here that looks like needs a little bit, just a tiny bit more. And there is a lot of variation between too much and too little. So it doesn't have to be that precise. You are better off with too much. If you have to do, worry about is it too much or too little. The worst part about too much is it spills out. When it warms up, it becomes much more viscous and it'll drip down around the CPU. It gets messy. If you feel like you've got too much, use a clean finger on the glove and just tap on it. Maybe it'll come off on the glove. And if you notice any empty spots, it's good and thorough to make sure that you have a nice level of application of it. But again, you don't have to be that precise. It will warm up and spread out naturally. It's not an airtight system. And then as far as the glove goes, you just turn it inside out as you take it off. And now your hands are clean. You're going to peel this protective cover over the polished surface, mates with the top of the CPU for thermal transfer to not be disrupted by dust, fingerprint oil, oils from your skin rather, any sort of debris and detritus. We just have a nice clean mirror surface, so we save that for last. But if you forget to take this film off, your cooler no working, no good. All right, we're going to set that down again with the screw that you can see sticking out going towards the RAM. That's where our fan is going to be, on this side. And we use the included driver, and we'll start to get these screws aligned, but don't tighten them too much, just get them started. Just a couple turns. And a couple turns once we find the post. There it is. And we're just going to go back and forth so we have as even as possible. We're trying to make this as level as possible. We don't want to tighten one side fully while the other side remains fully untightened. They don't have to be precisely tightened exactly the same, but we're trying to keep it in the ballpark, okay? Within reason. So that one has stopped turning. Don't tighten it any further than that. You will break the head off. And then, guess what? You can't finish your build until you get a replacement. You're not going to go to the hardware store and buy one of those. That's it. Now we take our fan and we put our fan brackets on. We want the open end of the fan, this end here. This is the direction air gets sucked into. Many fans have an arrow indicating, but you can tell by looking at the fan where these support brackets and the sticker is. See, that sticker wouldn't do you much good if it was spinning around in circles. You wouldn't be able to read it. That's the back of the fan. That's where the air comes out. We want the air going in through the radiator and out towards the back by the I/O shield. I also want this cable coming out of the fan to power the fan as close to where it's going to hook onto the motherboard. I don't want to have to route the cable around. It's ridiculous. So keep that in mind. So we know the orientation of the fan will go this way. The fan brackets simply slide into the holes, like one here and one there. And we do the exact same on the opposite side. So it looks like this. So with the open area of the fan facing the outside, this fan will recess into the radiator. And we grab that metal fan buckle and it will slide into the groove right here. Just pops in there. And the same thing on the other side. That's it. I mean, Scythe coolers are super easy. If you want to, you can make this level so we can pop this off a little bit, raise it up, put it back on, do the same thing on the other side. And then finally, we have our fan power cable, and that is going to go on where it says CPU fan. And we've got 1, 2, 3 fan headers here. And on the board, it will be written what each one is, or you can open up your instruction manual if you're one of those people. I won't judge you. Too late. And let me just take a look here and see if I can identify where the writing is. Ah, yes, there is a little bit of writing right here. So this one says the top fan here is CPU fan. This is CPU optional. CPU optional means a second fan. So we would put the first fan here. And if there was a second fan, it would go below that. And then what's the third one for? Anybody want to guess? And you got to orient it in the right direction or it won't go on. Just like so. What's this one for? Who wants to tell me? Class? I don't like the way that's wound around. Unwind this, untwist this cable. It says in little tiny words right on the circuit board what that's for. Paul Howe says all-in-one. That's right. If we had a liquid cooler, it would go on this. First fan goes on the top one. Second fan, such as on the other side, goes on the one below. So this is a really well outfitted motherboard. And look how clean that looks. Everything else, spare parts, we don't need. Just clear my work area here a little bit. Bear with me for 1 second. 2 seconds. Ooh, let me just get this out of my way. Now we're ready to plug a power supply in and fire this bad boy up. Make sure that it trains and boots correctly with the RAM and the CPU. Check our BIOS version. Apply a new version if possible, if available. And then install Windows 11. Pretty easy, pretty boilerplate. I love builds like this. They don't frustrate me the way all the RGB and extra wiring and hoses and liquid cooling. Oh, the screwdriver can go with the customer too. We can put the screwdriver, we're done with it, back in the box. Thermal compound, there's probably not enough left in this thermal compound to, I don't know, these are spare parts. Documentation can go in the box. Just get that out of the way. And these are the AMD and other Intel sockets we're not using the cooler for. So you can do with that whatever you want. Since we're going to end up using this power supply anyway, let's go back widescreen here so you get a better view of what I'm doing. I might as well just use this power supply for testing. All the cables are black, power supply is black, everything's going to match beautifully, and it's not costing an arm and a leg. It's also not bargain basement cheap, but for what you're getting, it's a solid value if you want something that's going to last you a very long time. If you only care about today, you could save a lot of money and just buy it 6 times and then spend 3 times more money over the same 10 years that this one will last. Your choice. CPU power. We have 2 choices here. It probably doesn't matter which one we use. Typically one is labeled A and B or 1 and 2. I tend to stick it on one labeled number 1. And it looks like it looks like the one closest to the I/O shield is number 1, and the one closest to the CPU is number 2. Again, it may not matter. Why are there 2? That's for essentially overclocking or overvolting. As long as you're staying within the manufacturer specifications, you only need the 1. So if your power supply only has 1, you don't have to worry that you bought the wrong power supply. On the other hand, if you're one of those people that doesn't like an empty plug, then you want to make sure you get a power supply with 2 EPS CPU 12-volt power cables. And you will spend more for that, even though it actually isn't anything you're probably going to need. But don't let me stop you from spending money on things you don't need. Again, when I'm selling computers to customers, they're often ordering 3 or more, and we want them all the same in order to make sure that the price is the same and support will be the same. I know which model of board and how they're configured, regardless of which one it is. And at scale, the more you buy, the more you're going to save by not buying unnecessary items. A $10 unnecessary item is an extra $100 on 10 machines. So bear that in mind. If you have a difficult, if you're like, why is he making a big deal about 10 bucks? Because usually they're ordered in multiples. I also want something that's going to be reliable and easy to support. Otherwise, my business model isn't going to work anymore. Doug Betts over on Live Windows Training with Doug Betts today talked about how he bills clients by the hour. I don't. My business clients are billed on a flat rate. So the less I work, the more money I make. That ensures to my clients I'm not milking a job, making it take longer, because the longer it takes, the more I get paid. They don't know any better. Is it supposed to take that long? I also like having a guaranteed income at the end of the month. So if the client always pays me the same every 30 days, that's money I can count on versus, am I going to make money this month? I don't know. And it incentivizes me to get in and out quickly for my customers so that I'm more profitable. And my customers know how much budget they can expect for the year for their IT department because it's a fixed amount. I'm not saying my way is superior. It's just the way I choose to run my business. As such, time is money, specifically my money, because if I have to stay longer at a client on a regular basis where the retainer amount is no longer profitable for me, I have to raise the retainer. And the client may choose to take their business somewhere else if they feel it's too much money. So I don't want to rock the boat. They're happy, I'm happy. Let's do it this way. Let's get it right the first time. And even if it costs me a little bit more money or a little bit more time today, so that it won't statistically be likely I have to spend that time again anytime soon, then that's a smart investment for me. So I'm always looking out, in a way, I'm looking out for the customer, but what I'm really doing is looking out for me. If it's saving me time, it's saving my customer money. So, all right, let's get a power switch on this bad boy and fire it up. Power switch right here. power switch. There. That'll go here. I need an HDMI cable that I'm standing on. And I need a keyboard and a mouse. This should be a fantastic, really nice looking machine. It should look great and eat your lunch. And steal your girlfriend. That's how good this is, I think. Okay. Power supplies. I am quickly running out of desktop room. I could have taken the case down, but a little late for that now. Power. Fan is spinning. We got a light on the motherboard. Let's jump over to the video output. I guess it's facing me now. Right there. Now it says no signal. That's coming from the capture card. The first boot may take a minute as it trains the RAM. The more RAM you have, the longer this will take. If you have 96 gigs of RAM, you might be here for a few minutes, like literally 3 to 5 minutes. You need to let it sit. It says a new CPU has been installed. Before making any adjustments in the BIOS, please press F5 to load the factory default settings to ensure smooth operation. Okay, F5. Oh, that's not going to work. First, you have to press F1 to enter the BIOS. Okay, F1. And then BIOS should appear. F5. Reset defaults. Yes. Hit enter. And if we look at the top of the screen, bear with me for a second. I have to make this. There we go. Now I can see it. It says we're using BIOS version 0410, and we'll check and see if there's a newer version. It says this is a Core Ultra 5 245K. That is correct. 5 gigahertz with 32 gigs of DDR5 running at 4000. Now that's fine for now. Don't worry about XMP or anything until later. CPU fan is detected and no other fans are detected, which is good. And A, not available or not applicable, that's correct. If we go to, let's see, advanced mode down here, F7, that's where you get your more traditional settings for those of you that are comfortable in there. And then we'll go to Tool, and the ASUS EasyFlash 4 utility would be what we would use if there's a newer BIOS. So what I have done off camera, about 3 minutes before the show was getting ready to start, is I went to the ASUS website for this motherboard and downloaded the latest BIOS, not knowing what was on this one. And I just put it on this flash drive along with some drivers. I'm going to plug this flash drive into literally any USB port on the back of this machine. We'll give that a minute to initialize. I'm going to go back over to the BIOS here. Once again, BIOS version. I've already forgotten what the BIOS version was. Is it not on this page? Got the date. Don't worry about the date and time being wrong. The date and time are right in Taiwan. They're just wrong in Arizona, but that's fine. Windows will autocorrect this. Leave it alone. Don't mess with it. I'm telling you, it's not off by more than 12 hours. Just leave it alone. Heck, if this was even off by 12 months, leave it alone. All right, anyway, let me go back to easy mode. BIOS version. (0410). We'll go to advanced mode, tool, easy flash, and what's on the flash drive? Is it 0410? Let's see, right here, there's an 8 gig drive. There's all the drivers I downloaded. Audio drivers, Bluetooth drivers, VGA drivers, NPU drivers. There it is. 0805 is much newer. And this will even open a zip file just like the Z890 did. So I didn't even have to unzip this file. That's pretty clever. I like that. So we're going to change that to a cap file, and now it automatically finds it. So if I would have just left it alone as I downloaded it in a zip format, I wouldn't have had to make that change. All right, now of course about BitLocker, we haven't installed anything yet, so we want to read the file, make sure that it's the right file for this board. It says you're about to update your BIOS. Please ensure the ME version on your motherboard is updated to the corresponding version for better system stability. For details, please refer to the support section on your motherboard. Now, there is an ME update in that zip file that I extracted as well. So let's see if it does this automatically. This is dated January 9th of 2025, so this is pretty new. Let's do it, see what happens. It's important when you're updating the BIOS that you leave the system alone. You've asked it to do something, now get out of its way and allow it to do it. If you interfere with it, it may cause the motherboard to be damaged irreparably, where it has to go back to the factory. At least irreparably from a consumer perspective. You'd have to be a tech with specialty tools to recover it. So it's best if you just leave it alone. Don't pick at it or it won't heal, kind of an attitude. This will sometimes take 3 to 5 minutes. You'll know when it's done because if you have Windows installed, it'll return back to Windows when it's done. It may reboot several times. Just because it reboots doesn't mean it's done. If it takes you back in the BIOS and is sitting there waiting, it's because we don't have an operating system installed and it's done. So you're going to know one way or the other. It won't be like, gee, I wonder. If you wonder, then you're not waiting long enough, okay? If the screen goes black and nothing happens, leave it alone. Give it a couple minutes to reset itself and video will come back. You need to be patient here. Now, if you've waited 10 minutes and nothing's happened, something's wrong. But I mean, doesn't feel like 10 minutes. I mean, you know for a fact an actual 10 minutes has elapsed. Now, I haven't clicked anything, even though it came up with a message telling me to click OK. I didn't click anything. I didn't touch anything. The Elgato signal tells me the system is shutting down and restarting all on its own. I am completely hands-off, totally just a spectator and observing only at this point, allowing the system to do whatever the heck it's doing. And in just a minute here, it should recycle the video output. BIOS is updating LED firmware. Do not shut down or reset the system. You see, it's not done yet. It could do this 2 or 3 times, and that would be normal. There's the second time. See, now we're back to rebooting again. Anytime you see Elgato on the screen, that's the capture card that I'm using, saying, hey, there's no video for me to capture. Well, yeah, not if the system's rebooting, there isn't. So, or if the system's off. When it starts again, maybe it's going to update the ME firmware. I don't know. Did it already do it? I don't know. We'll find out. Now, it says the current ME firmware version is 19001753, but it's expecting 1854. So please take one of these actions. Press F1 to enter setup. This message will reappear if the ME firmware is not updated. Press Y for easy flash use. For easy flash, use the zip file. This message will reappear. Okay, so let's hit Y because we already have the flash drive there. Let's see what happens. There, it says ME update tool. This was inside of the zip file. Oh, that is a zip file. Please back up your BitLocker. Okay, whatever. You want to read it? Yes. Selected file is not a proper BIOS. That's fine. That's fine. We want to look for, is it under a cap file? What happens here? Is it embedded in this? Let's find out what it does. You're about to update your BIOS. Ensure the ME version on your motherboard is updated. So that's not what I want. I'm going to say no on this because we've already just literally did that. The BIOS utility, interestingly enough, Let's look at it this way, cap and zip files. These are the drivers, ME update tool. It's not a BIOS. I will say ASUS is a bit unique in how they do this. Let's exit this and let's go back to, let's say, save and exit. It's fine. And we should get that message again, right? That popped up and said, hey, your ME management engine, ME, is not what they're expecting. So let's see what the other options were, since I went to the third option. Probably should have just went to the first option, but I'm guessing. Normally, the BIOS does this automatically, so I'm a little thrown by this process. I think ASUS could make this process a little clearer and less user interaction. Press F1 to enter setup. This message will reappear. Press Y for easy flash. Use the zip file to update the ME firmware. Press N to dismiss this message. Boy, okay, well, F1 I think just takes us back into the BIOS again, so we go around in a circle. And advanced mode, tool. So this is a BIOS rollback, which would assume your BIOS was successful, but you wanted to roll back to a prior one. If your BIOS isn't successful, you'd never be able to get this screen back up. So think about that. I don't see anything about Windows ME update being separated away from the BIOS update. And it's telling me the update is different here. The only thing I can think of is we do the BIOS update twice. It doesn't make sense to me, but it wouldn't hurt if I'm wrong. This needs to be a cap file. Let's just try it one more time. I'm curious if the ME firmware is built into the BIOS. And if so, that's very unintuitive to have to do it twice. On the other hand, doing it twice shouldn't hurt anything. Now, wait, there it goes. It says it's processing area. I don't know, does this look like the same way it did it the first time? I can't even tell. I would think it would say updating ME, right down there where it says processing update. But let's just find out. That was pretty quick. Click OK. All right, the system's dead quiet. You know, CPU fans turning, everything seems happy. It looks great. It's performing. I mean, I can't tell, but as expected at this point. It does take a minute. Once again, anytime it resets a BIOS, it's got to retrain everything all over again. So you're going to get the lack of video signal as the system resets. Before making adjustments, F5. Okay, so that did not update the Windows ME. We're still, sorry, the Intel ME. We're still waiting on this ME version updated. Use the zip file to update the ME firmware. That's what's throwing me. So I'm going to hit Y. And, you know, maybe my mistake was I should not have unzipped the file. Because when I click on the ME update tool, I think that's a tool to use within Windows, and that's why it's saying there's nothing to read in here. And with the BIOS itself, in the zip file, if I would have left it alone, I think I took it out. Yeah, instead of this being a directory, this should be a zip file. So bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to, let's exit this for a moment. We're going to exit Easy Flash. I'm going to take my flash drive. Let's go back to camera 1 so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take this flash drive. I'm going to go back to the other computer that I downloaded the zip file on. Now, ASUS is the only motherboard manufacturer currently using an unzipped file for updates. I love this, by the way. I'm just not used to it. I've only saw it for the first time with the ASUS ProArt board. And ASUS said that they were implementing this across their new range of boards. I would love to see ASRock and MSI and Gigabyte follow. So I'm just following old habits. Working harder than I need to. I'm going to grab the zip file I downloaded earlier. That's the BIOS entire zip file. Instead of extracting it to the flash drive, I'm just going to copy the whole zip file to the flash drive. It's pretty small. It's only about 13 gigs. 13 megs, I mean. 13 gigs. Can you imagine? Just my 13 gig BIOS file. And my 27 meg notepad file. All right, so that's easy. Copy and paste it onto the flash drive. And I'm walking, you like my play-by-play? Behind the camera, to the side of the camera, and now in front of the camera. All right, you've been with me the whole way virtually. Plug the flash drive back in, and then we're going to go back over to our BIOS. Back to advanced, back to tool, easy flash, the 8 gig flash drive, and there is our complete zip file right there. Let's see what's it going to do this time. Well, it still wants to update the BIOS, which is bizarre. Now, we can keep overwriting the same BIOS over and over. Oh, this is different. ME firmware update. Loading new ME firmware. Do not shut down or That's what I've been looking for this whole time. So, Uncle Carey's learning a new process with ASUS boards. I have no problem with that. If that's a standard, and we're not just doing one board that way, that is a welcome, long overdue standard. Definitely was doing it much more difficult than I needed to, which is still the same process required for literally everybody else who makes motherboards. But again, ASUS typically tends to be the one who innovates, and then they're often copied by the other manufacturers. And I have no problem with that. These innovations are welcome, from the way we install the NVMe drive. Again, ASUS did not send us the board. We paid for this board. ASUS has never paid us, nor are there any plans for ASUS to pay us. I'm looking at it strictly from, as a tech, as a system builder, and somebody who supports computers and builds them. How do I like this? I like it a lot. No, this is great. The evolution of the technology continues to impress me and make life so much easier. Less opportunity for, how do I, screw it up? How do I unzip a file? How do I extract the content? Don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. Just copy the zip file to the flash drive, and the software, the BIOS, does everything else on its own. Man, it should have been this way years ago. So yeah, ask me how I really feel about that. Well, that's running. Let me take a look in the chat and see what you guys are saying. Gamers Nexus hates ASUS. Okay, you might hate Walmart too. Doesn't mean I'm not shopping there. That's his problem. I don't think it's ASUS products Gamers Nexus has a problem with. It's the warranty support issues that he draws issue with, not the products themselves. But regardless, he's welcome to his opinion. I'm not going to absorb somebody else's experience as superior to mine. I will allow my experience to dictate my reaction and response, and somebody else's experience that doesn't affect me is just polluting my mind with a biased bit of information based on their values and perspective. They're welcome to it, and I'm welcome to mine. Mine is not superior to theirs. Theirs is not superior to mine, and they are not the same for very different reasons. Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat said, you need a longer bench top, my friend. Well, Planet Cryos, I don't have anybody local who could build it for me like you built yours. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Come out here and build me a bench. His looks great, by the way. Let's see. David Graham says, I don't understand why, if given two fans, why you wouldn't just use them both. Isn't it designed to use both? It's designed to work either way. The added fan is a upsell. They're selling it whether you need it or not. Again, if I serve you a plate of food that's bigger than your appetite, are you somebody that's going to eat all of it? Even if it makes you feel sick, bloated, and uncomfortable? Or will you say, they gave me way too much food, I'm not eating all of this? At what point do you allow other people to dictate your own observation and your own discretion? I personally encourage people to use judgment according to the situation. If you want to use both fans, go for it. It will make no difference whatsoever in your cooling, and it's only adding noise and more dust. So if it makes you feel better, then it's purely fan theater. And, you know, I'm not telling you not to. I'm telling you I am way too smart to be putting unnecessary hardware in the computers that are intended for business use that will later fail, that I have to support and reflect the quality of my work when they don't offer any benefit. Just because it's there doesn't mean you have to use it. But if you feel compelled that you have to use it, that's on you. That's not scientific, that's emotional. Before making any adjustments in the BIOS, press F5 to load the defaults. Okay, configure your VMD options. Well, we're not going to use a RAID array in this, although with 3 NVMe drives we could. Press F1 now to enter BIOS setup. Let's do that, and let's take a quick look in here. F5 to load the defaults. Yes. Give that a second. We're on BIOS 0805. That looks good. With regards to VMD options, we don't want any, what are the virtual machine disk or something. Again, that's for a RAID controller. Everything should be set to default. Set as enabled. Should see our NVMe drive in here somewhere. Oops, didn't mean to click on that. Let's go back. NVMe configuration, that's what I'm looking for. ORICO, yeah, it sees it. Beautiful. Nothing more needs to be done in here. Just those defaults are all we wanted. Again, it's way too early to be turning on XMP, and essentially you don't want to get a brand new car and just start flooring, you know, the gas pedal down and not breaking in the engine. Basically, you need to break the system in and make sure things are working before cranking it up to 11. You could crank it up to 11 and hope for the best, but then if things go wrong, you don't know if it's part of your build or the fact that you hammered on it. So the best thing you can do is make sure everything runs stable first, and then if it works, then you can hammer on it and make sure it runs stable. That makes your diagnostic, should things go wrong, much, much faster. So with that being done, I'm going to take the flash drive out of the back of the motherboard. I don't need the BIOS update anymore. We're done with it. I'm going to grab my Windows 11 installation media that's on a different flash drive here in my drawer, which is somewhere here. Somewhere in here I have this drawer. Everything just slides around in it. There's Windows 11, and I'm going to pop that into one of the blue flash drive USB ports on the back of the motherboard, because this is a more expensive, faster flash drive that makes the install happen quicker. For me, that's important because I do this all the time and we're live on video. So you want to buy a $5 flash drive and spend all day, knock yourself out. I want to get things done and move on. I buy a more expensive flash drive and use it where applicable to save time. I'm going to go to exit, save changes, and reset is what we do here. Now this should automatically restart to the to the Windows flash drive, because the NVMe drive has no data on it. It's blank. There's nothing for the computer to start to. So then it says, well, if I can't start from the NVMe, the next thing it checks is the USB ports. This all happens automatically in the BIOS. If you leave the BIOS alone, leave it at defaults, don't adjust the date and time, don't adjust the boot order, just leave it alone, and it will automatically try the USB drive if it can't boot from the NVMe. We give it a second to reboot, and you see that it did take a minute for it to come up. And once again, if you just wait, you should see the Windows 11 toilet bowl flushing. In theory, this is what should happen next. Give it a minute. Okay, it did something there that's likely with training. And there's the toilet bowl flushing. Now, I know for a fact that's our only Windows 11 install. It's got to be booting off the setup drive, and it is. See? And we'll go full screen over here so I can see it. And we're going to hit next. And US. Install Windows 11. Oh, I have to agree to this box here. And next. Product key. I'm going to say I don't have a product key for right now, but I'm going to go on SCD keys and I'm going to buy a Windows 10 Pro product key and use that Windows 10 Pro to activate Windows 11 Pro. So I got to make sure I'm picking Windows 11 Pro. Next. Accept. It should be looking for our storage devices now, and I want it to show the ORICO 2 terabyte drive. So it says there are multiple partitions on disk 0. This is our 2 terabyte drive, but it should only have unallocated space. So this drive was not properly cleaned from our prior testing. So I'm going to hit delete partition on disk 0. Give that a second. And then delete this partition on disk 0. What I want to see on a clean Windows install, be it Windows 10 or 11, is that I'm installing to disk 0, and that disk 0 has just one option. See how disk 1 has 4 different partitions? I want 0 partitions, so it should just be one item. Disk 0 is one item that says unallocated space, and the total size 1.9 terabytes, which is 2 terabytes based on gigabytes versus gigabytes versus, anyway, it's the same number, it's just calculated differently. Hit next, and now it's going to confirm this is what you want to do. It's going to give me like a summary. Yes, so hit install. Now that's going to partition and format that NVMe drive and then copy over all of our Windows 11 installation files, and then it'll reboot and start the install. And that's how that works. Let me put camera 1 back up and in a corner here so we can look at me while we're doing this, because this is kind of a boring thing to stare at, but you'll see this is going to install quickly. Luann said, this is a beautiful case, Carey. It looks 80s vintage. Maybe there's a subconscious thing that attracts me to it. Far out, that's gnarly. Totally tubular. John Lewis says, I enjoy watching Carey. I enjoy watching Carey build and repair. I built computers in the 1980s for resale. Yeah, that's when you could make money at it. John joins us from Brazil. Phil Stott said, BIOS bias. You could copyright that. I suppose I could. Luke Chappie says hello. Welcome in, Luke. Charles Mandola with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Charles. Go back through my activity list and see if I've missed any other super chats. I hate when I do that. So again, a thank you to Planet Cryos and Charles Vandola, Peter VZ, and Peter VZ again. He had a €2 and a €1 super chat. Alan Lindos and our friend Mark Gaines. Gary Tatum renewed membership. Right on. And Planet Cryos again. Nick Caffrey and Charlie Purdy. Nick Caffrey also renewed his membership. David Graham and membership renewal from Mark Baggett. You guys rock. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and enabling me to continue to build the machines I want to build with parts that are, I feel, different enough to justify making yet another computer build video. They are kind of all the same, and they have been. But there's little variations in things like how the NVMe mounts, or the way the Wi-Fi antennas now plug straight on instead of screwing them on. Little differences. The new Mugen 5, Mugen 6 versus Mugen 5, things like that. So the differences we're seeing, if you watch over the years, I'm trying to keep you up to date with the changes. If you watched a video from 2008 on how I build a computer and watched it now, there's going to be a lot more differences, but overall you'll say it's more or less the same. Yeah, and that's the way it's been, you know, since the late 90s, really. But we have things today we didn't have back then, like NVMe and Wi-Fi. Well, we did have some Wi-Fi in the late 90s, but it certainly wasn't as common as it is today. Let me get rid of camera 1 here so I can read the screen, and we'll go through the setup here. Finalize our install. United States, yes. Yes, keyboard, yes. Another language, no. Don't have internet. Got to tell it twice. Oh, you didn't have to tell it twice. Okay, user will be the name of the user. No password. And I like to keep the location setting on, but I turn everything else off. That's going to set our date and time for us on a regular basis, because the clock will lose minutes and seconds over time. Seconds and minutes. And this just automatically keeps it updated in the background, including any changes with daylight saving. You don't have to deal with that. Or if you're looking for maps on how to get places, you don't necessarily have to tell it from where you are. If you want to, you can, but location settings make life so much easier. And if you're a big privacy advocate, you know, you can just go buy a log cabin in the woods and provide your own electricity and live off the grid. That's fine too. And when you go missing, there'll be no way to find you. But if you had a device with location settings on and it was with you, we'd know where you were and could rescue you. So pros and cons, pros and cons. Now, once this is finished, I suppose we're going to want to use the ASUS driver installer to grab the latest chipset drivers. When you're dealing with the latest hardware, you're not going to get everything through Windows Update. It's possible our network card may not be detected. That's pretty normal on if you're getting the newest thing. If you're buying technology from a year or more ago, this isn't as often an issue. But if you want to buy, like this chipset literally came out a week or no more than 2 weeks ago. To expect Windows Update to have those drivers is unrealistic. It may take a year for all of the drivers. We're going to get some of them. If I right-click on the Start button and go to the Device Manager, let's see how many items are missing. Quite a few. And a lot of this will be taken care of by an Intel chipset driver. Plus, we have a Simple Communications, which may be our network driver, or the Wi-Fi driver, you know, wired or wireless. I'm not sure. It doesn't tell us what it is, but we know there's missing drivers. If you have missing drivers on your system, as I'm demonstrating here, let me go back to camera 1. You're welcome to go to our forums and take a screenshot of your device manager and what's missing. We can identify that 100% of the time. It's free. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to turn the comment section into a forum for support. We have a forum for support and we have a comment section for comment. So I will kindly request, if you are asking for help in our comments of YouTube videos, that you take that to the appropriate place. We have a place for that now. That's CareyHolzman.boards.net. It looks like Let's go over here to a tab. We'll open a tab, and then I'm going to go to window capture. Go up here, type in, and by the way, a link in the video notes if you don't want to type it in. Here and type in CareyHolzman.boards.net. It's been captured before. And this is all free. You can create a free account if you want to post, or don't create a free account if you just want to be a spectator and watch. And we encourage you to pop in here and introduce yourself. Let us know about yourself if you feel like it. And yeah, there may be some pop-ups or things that occur. That's how it gets paid for, but we don't get paid. We're not making any money off of this, but we're not paying any money for it either. Same as you. Basically, you can come in here as a viewer. You don't have to be a member. Everybody's welcome. Just be kind. If we see spam messages, we're removing them. And we're going to keep this a very kind place for the community to go that's safe, free of all the nonsense that's the Wild West online. And we're here to not only help each other, but even just keep each other company if we like each other's company. We could create our own message thread. And this is open 24/7, 365 days a year. You don't have to wait for a live video. So thank you to Mara for setting that up. It's long overdue. Now, how come the ASUS option, like when you first install a brand new operating system, doesn't it pop up and say, hey, do you want to install the drivers? A lot of modern motherboards do. But I never plugged the internet into this, remember? So now that Windows 11 is done installing, I'm done with my flash drive. And now I'll grab my Ethernet cable. Now this assumes we have a network card driver already. I don't know yet. I'm going to find out this way by just plugging in the network cable. There it is. And we'll see if that little globe down there in the right corner starts flashing. That indicates the network card driver is loaded. It'll become a little monitor, which it just did. And in theory, we should get that pop-up that says, hey, do you want to run the ASUS setup for your drivers? This only happens once on your first boot, but you've got to have a network connection for that to work. Does that make sense? So now that we've got that, it would be in our benefit, instead of installing all the drivers manually and figuring it out on our own, why don't we just let the ASUS Driver Hub do it for us? The great thing about the ASUS Driver Hub is you don't have to download that whole ASUS Creator Hub thing. This is a much faster, cleaner way, and thank goodness ASUS has introduced this. I'm going to click yes and demonstrate how this works. It's so much faster. Let's close the device manager out so you can see full screen here. There's the license agreement. You got to scroll down and then hit accept. And it'll analyze what we have. Finish there. It'll analyze what we have and what's missing. You don't worry about this whole Microsoft Edge thing. Start without my data, uncheck, confirm and continue, continue without data. That's all Microsoft Edge. All right. So it's saying you're missing all these drivers. We have an NPU driver, chipset driver, Intel Dynamic Tuning, Intel Graphics Accelerator, HID. HID is a human interface device. What does that even mean? Your keyboard and your mouse interface the human with a device to the computer, the device being a keyboard or mouse, right? That's a way to interface with the human. The screen went blank there because likely a driver was downloading from Windows Update in the background automatically. What I want to watch out for here is any sort of software. So the Armory crate, that's what I was trying to think of earlier. I don't want that. CPU ID, Norton 360, I don't want any of that. I just want drivers only. So it says there are 16 available updates. And it doesn't tell me, is that the drivers and the software? Because I don't want any of the software. I don't want WinRAR. I don't want Norton 360. 1, 2, 3, 4. And how many are here? This should be easier. More clear. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, that didn't make it any clearer. See, the install all button scares me here because I don't want these last 4 items. Is there some way to say I don't want them? Not apparently. I don't have an install all for software, so that makes me think, let me just count this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, it says 18. So it is including the software. I would avoid hitting update all or install all. I just want drivers. Wow, that sucks. If there's a way to do it, it's not clear. So that means I'm going to hit install manually on 14 of these instead of being able to say, just do these 14. There doesn't seem to be a way to exclude. It's everything or one at a time. Kind of sucks. See, I'm not a big ASUS shill. I'll call it as I see it. I'm telling you, there should be an easy way to show me drivers and only drivers, and for me to deselect drivers I don't want, and software should not be in the area of drivers. There should be a box that separates this, and I should have a different install all for software. That bugs me, but this is a new feature from ASUS, and we'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to polish this better. ASUS is one of the few motherboard manufacturers that still tries to put Norton or McAfee on your system. Let's restart. Most other manufacturers don't do that anymore. They've moved on. ASUS is still doing it. Be aware of that. I don't think that's a reason to not buy their products. It's just something to be aware of. If you're going to buy them, expect it so you don't end up with that stuff on your system, because it never comes cleanly off. Never. Once Norton 360 has infected your system, it'll forever have stuff left over in your registry and system files in your Windows directories, subdirectories, that you'll never be able to clean out without a fresh install. Best to be avoided, and that's why it upsets me so much. And you know, ASUS is this supposed leader, but they're definitely not setting the right example here. In this case, their competition is ahead of them. But again, give them time. Maybe if they get enough complaints about it, they'll prioritize separating that out and making it clearer. Let's see, what am I looking for? Driver hub. Intel chipset driver. That's probably going to take care of a lot of the device manager issues. Just this chipset driver. And this is true of AMD as well. When you get a lot of devices in your device manager that on a fresh install are unidentifiable, most of it is going to be chipset driver related. And if you watch, as this installs, you will likely see 70% or more of these unknown and PCIe devices be named and moved appropriately into the proper subsection instead of into other. Once they're identified and drivers are loaded, then they get moved into where they belong, if it's a networking device, video device, or a system device. So as this installs, just watch. We're hands off otherwise. Just out of curiosity, just how many of those items go away. Every time that device manager refreshes, it's renewing that list. Look how much shorter the list became just now, and it's only 60% of the way done. So there's more. Well, maybe not. Installation's completed. Okay, some of these devices may not update until a restart. So we'll go ahead and restart now. Now, you could go through and install everything without the restart, but if you're that impatient to potentially cause a problem with your new system, I think it's better to take your time, do one thing at a time, because if the new system, if you're not restarting and you keep installing one driver after the other with one big restart at the end, and it crashes, it blue screens, or it doesn't boot, which one of those updates caused it? Oh. So you do one at a time, take your time. Slower is faster, because if anything goes wrong, you'll know exactly what the last update was. You'll know exactly what the cause is, and it's so much easier. Slower is faster. If you took your time to build it, take your time to get the software installed right, and then you won't have to mess with it for years if you do it right out of the gate. If you're too impatient, maybe have somebody else build the system for you. Looks like we went into 4K mode now. One thing at a time. I cannot stress that enough. And it does look like my video is covering up a bit of the progress here. I apologize for that. I wasn't aware it was doing that. Move it over there, that way you can see the progress. While we're waiting, let me just jump over into the chat room. John Lewis says, sometimes I found if you select all, then you can unselect those you don't want by clicking a check mark. I didn't see any check marks. Let me take a quick look here over back to the where is it? Yeah, there's no, where do you see check marks? Remember, the button says to install all. The button doesn't say select all. I have to assume that if I hit install all, it's going to install everything with no checkboxes. If it said select all, then I would expect checkboxes. And if there are checkboxes there and I'm not seeing them, please tell me where I can see them, because I don't know where they are. As far as I can tell, they don't exist. That's why I'm doing it this way. And it wouldn't be that much effort for ASUS to give us those options. But don't mistake install all with select all. Install all implies you're installing all. Period. No options. All. Doesn't say install selected. All right, let's go back over here. Phrasing is very important in this industry. Why is it dropping me to the bottom? It's interesting. All right, let that install. Luke Chappie said, I finished installing Windows 11 today, and then after Windows Update, it went to a blue screen error. This is a known issue with Western Digital 2 terabyte NVMe drives. Do you happen to have one of those? Also, if you want assistance like that, if you take a picture with your phone of the blue screen error, there's critical information on that screen that tells us what the error is. Not all blue screens mean the same thing. Just like if you have a cold, you could have one of 1,000 different cold viruses. So while you might have the same symptoms, we need to identify what's causing it. And there's critical information on that blue screen. And if we can see that, we can better able to help you. If you have a Western Digital drive and it's not 2 terabyte in size, then the fix is it's not to do with your Western Digital drive. It's only 2 terabyte Western Digital drives you need to worry about. So if it's not a 2 terabyte drive, that's not the blue screen cause. In that case, we do need to see a screenshot, and the best way to do that is to go to CareyHolzman.boards.net, create a new message there, and share the screenshot with us, and I'm sure we can identify what the cause is. We also need to know your processor, the make and model of your motherboard to ensure they're both Windows 11 compatible. Let's see, what was I doing? Oh yeah, it's gone full screen over here. Oh, it wants to restart after every one of these. It's killing me. Blue screen errors are often caused by bad RAM. Even though the RAM may have worked fine in Windows 10, you may have bad RAM. Running memtest 86. Blue screens are also caused by people circumventing the Windows 11 security and installation requirements. So if you have a system that's not Windows 11 compatible, that's expected. You just have to not put Windows 11 on it. If it's a system you just built that's been working fine, and all of a sudden the blue screens happen, my question is, what did you just change? You changed something. Is it a pre-built system? Is it a laptop? Is it something you built yourself? What is the motherboard? And what is the CPU? And what is the RAM? And because of that, we could spend an hour with you getting answers to our questions that you're not volunteering to us. As a result, it's like an interrogation where we have to extract information from you to give you the help you're asking for. And to interrupt a live show to go through that, I just monopolizing everything for you. It's just not an adequate or efficient means to be able to help you. That's why we have the forums. We do hope you'll take us up on that. We'd be happy to help you. That's not a simple one-fix solution. Like, we have to identify the cause first. It could be caused by thousands of different variables. And we whittle those variables down by getting answers to our questions. All right, let me go back over to my desktop over here, and let's continue. How's the device manager looking so far? Let's take a look at how far we've progressed. Still got quite a few in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. That's okay, we still have a lot more drivers to install. I don't even hear this. Like, keep in mind, this system's not in a case yet, and I can't even hear it. That's how quiet the fan is on the Mugen cooler. And remember, if it gets hot, that fan will speed up. So clearly, it's more than adequate, at least so far. The CPU is not getting hot, or we would hear that fan crank up. Scott says, latest updates, I lost my file sharing with a wired LAN. Scott, we have a video that walks you through all the network settings. We just posted it just a few days ago. Just watch that video. It's a long video because there's a lot of little settings you have to check. But it will identify every single time. It'll cover every possible issue. Once again, oversimplifying, it doesn't work. What's the fix? Not suggesting that's what you're looking for, but there's every little I in every word of the sentence and every letter T that need to be dotted and crossed, or it will not work, and you have to check every single thing from the Windows settings, the sharing settings, the network drivers, the cable itself. All of that has to be checked. But it is all covered top to bottom thoroughly in our video on the main page here on YouTube. And I guarantee if you follow it, you'll fix the problem. And if you want to tell us, what ended up being the problem, it's always interesting to hear, but I know it's one of those things. What's happening?
And folks can also post questions like that in the forum.
That's what I just said.
Oh. I'm running back and forth.
Do me a favor, put that in the forum.
Yeah, please.
All right, let me get back over to drivers here. And you know, we're getting these drivers from ASUS. We're not using a third-party driver utility, free or otherwise. It's spying on you if it's free, and it's completely not trustworthy in my opinion. You may not be getting the latest driver, the right driver. You don't know what their motivation is to provide that to you, but I guarantee there's a reason. But at least with ASUS, you've paid for it with the motherboard. That's their motivation, is to keep you happy as a customer. And this is the sole place you should be going for your drivers initially during a setup. Unless you're having problems, stick with the manufacturer's drivers. Period. End of story. Doing otherwise for no reason other than, oh, there's new drivers, will likely end you in you'll end up in our support forums asking for help. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Unless there's some security issue that you're trying to address, or there's some justification behind making a change. Anytime you make a change, that's when the system is most likely to fail. If you leave it alone, you can expect more of the same. The minute you change it, you are now altering the known circumstances of that system, which may be better or worse or the same when you're done. So if there's no reason to take that risk, leave it alone. That's all I'm trying to say. Whenever you make a change, that is more than likely when a problem will occur. I'm not saying you shouldn't make changes, but if you make changes, expect there could be consequences. The likelihood of consequences without making changes, very unlikely. That would be like a power outage or a random part failure. Far less common in the industry. Ask me how I know. It's what I do for a living, and I can tell you, most problems I fix are user created. I don't mind. It's a living, but I'd like to save you some money and the headache. So by sticking with ASUS or the manufacturer of the motherboard for our drivers, or the manufacturer of our video card for drivers, or the manufacturer of, you know, some add-in device, USB device, don't go to a third party for your drivers. I'm telling you, in 2025, big mistake. Not a third party driver installer. I don't care how great it's been in the past. I mean, you do whatever you want, but I find that profoundly lazy and dismissive of any responsibility. You're putting that into the hands of an unknown party, and you are trusting that they are not spying on you, that they are delivering the right and the latest driver without any sort of circumstance or consequence. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I really wish the world was that trustworthy today. But I would never do that on a client system. Never, never, never. If it's an Intel driver update utility or an ASUS driver update utility for Intel product and ASUS product, that's not a third party. So driver update utilities coming from the manufacturers of those products are fine. It's third-party ones. If you have any on your system, I cannot recommend enough you get that off of there. But your system, you can load it with viruses for all I care. Just saying. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what you should do. But if you know better, don't let me interrupt. Gary Tatum says he just registered at the forum. Right on. Thank you, Gary. We'll look forward to seeing your messages in there. Luke says, is it a good idea to buy an OEM product key? That's your choice. Is it a good idea to buy a pair of shoes? And if so, what brand? I mean, at the end of the day, you decide. Is it a good idea to order the McNuggets or the burger at McDonald's, or should I just go to the store and make my own? Whatever you prefer. All right, let's go back over here to our updater. Should be getting pretty well through this list. Oh, the serial I/O software. That will also take care of a bunch of device manager items. Yeah, we're down to 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Likely when this installs, that'll take care of at least 2 of them, I'll bet you. Took care of darn near all of them, didn't it? Look at that. That's the magic one right there. So many people are running their systems right now. Some of you watching have items in your device manager that have no drivers. Are you one of them? We could run the system without installing any of these drivers. As you can see, the system booted up just fine. We could leave all of those device drivers out. And if we didn't know to look in there, we'd likely not know we're not getting all of our performance or reliability. We wouldn't know any better. Ignorance is bliss. I'm here to bring this to your attention, because if you don't go looking in your device manager, if you can't be bothered to look, because why would I? Everything's working fine. How do you know everything's working fine? I'm looking for some verification, right? So if I look in the device manager, I right click on the start menu, I go to device manager, and I expect to see no other devices listed. Everything should be in its own category, like whatever this is, generic Bluetooth adapter, something's wrong there. How would I know unless I looked? So we're going to continue because we haven't finished our driver install, and likely these are issues that take care of themselves once we get done installing drivers. But if you've installed Windows updates or you've never even looked in there, your computer may not be running to its fullest ability. Wouldn't you want it to? With all the focus and attention on heat and thermal compound and fans, how many of you don't even have your device drivers in your device manager checked on a regular basis? It does feel a little bit hypocritical to me, like something's way more important and you're not paying attention to it. So I just want you to think about that and then just verify. Test and verify, test and verify. That's it. We're not looking to create problems. We're just looking for any existing ones. If there's an existing problem, let's take care of it. If there's no problem, let's leave it alone. That's all I'll try to say. Gary Tatum says, I'm OCD about my drivers and updates. You know, you're one of the rare few. Most computer owners don't know what a driver is and don't know really how important the updates are and why they exist. They think they're a hassle to keep them safe and secure. Stop trying to protect me. You're in my way. All right, any other questions, comments? I'm just going to finish installing these drivers. We'll wrap it up for today. We'll run the heat test and put it in the case with the power supply on part 2 of this video. Will we do it tomorrow? Maybe. Maybe over the weekend. I have a couple things going on, but I'm anxious to see this done. I think it's going to look fantastic, and it's going to work beautifully, quietly, fast. And I expect it's going to be a good, reliable system for no less than 10 years. No exaggeration. 10 years minimum. Now, if you're somebody who updates your system every 2 or 3 years, this probably isn't the system for you. But if you're somebody who wants to build a good system that'll last you the next 10 years, this is a bargain all day long. It's basically less than $100 a year. It's less than $10 a month. And it'll be one of the most reliable, fastest computers you've ever owned in your life. You build it yourself. It's a great feeling of accomplishment and fulfillment, and anybody can do it. You can put together Legos. You can do what I'm doing. This is easy stuff. Patrick is checked. He says, I check regularly. Nothing is missing. Right on. Well, I'm delighted to hear that. That's what we want to hear. But again, if you don't check it in a while, things may have changed. A BIOS update can change your device manager. A lot of people don't think about that. That's especially true on an AMD system. with the AGESA updates. All right, let's take a look here. How many we got left? One, two, three, four. Oh, only four more. So we've got a Bluetooth driver, a Wi-Fi driver, an audio driver, and the LAN driver. So even though our LAN is working, we may not have the latest driver, and specifically provided by ASUS. That's the important key here. We have the latest driver provided by Windows Update. These are two very different things. Windows Update has to go through a whole research and development, testing and quality control under thousands of scenarios and variables in order for it to be approved for being released to Windows Update, whereas ASUS has their own requirements. And in your third-party driver, if you're going to use that, who knows how they decide. I think when it comes to the Bluetooth stuff, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say restart later, because I really don't think we need to reboot between this unless we're using the Bluetooth. So we'll just go to the Wi-Fi driver next. And then I'll do the LAN driver, and then we'll reboot and do the audio driver. I think we'll take care of all the networking stuff just to speed this along. And at least if we have a problem with the reboot, we know it's network related. We don't know if it's Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or LAN, but given everything else is installed so smoothly so far, and knowing that the Wi-Fi and LAN drivers aren't critical to the rest of the system, it should be a safe thing to be able to click restart later and do all three of them in one swoop. Ideally, you'll still reboot between updates just in case, but because we're live and we're trying to move it along, I want to break my rule here, and since they're all part of the same family of drivers. Yeah, do it this way. Finally, there's the LAN driver, so we'll do that one. Then we'll reboot, come back. We should just have the audio driver. That's more than just an audio driver, by the way. That is also audio software. That's why the size of it is so big. Look at the size compared to this one. That's just a driver. That's driver and software. So that's going to give you all your sound mixer and unique software that goes to that Realtek audio chip to make the most of it. Now, if you don't use it, you don't have to have it. But the main reason you may not be using it is you don't know it's there and you don't know what it can do. So it's like the other example I gave where somebody says, I don't own a car because I don't go anywhere. And I tend to think you don't go anywhere because you don't own a car. It's easy to dismiss things you never had. The audio driver software you might find to be quite useful, but if you've never used it and you didn't know it existed, you wouldn't miss it. If you're just getting the driver, then your audio works without any of the functionality unique to the audio chip itself, which you need the software to control. This is outside of Windows software. This is software made by the audio chip manufacturer. Just FYI. Choose what's right for you, but at least make an informed decision. Almost done. Matt Zoloff says, thanks and good night from Sweden to you all. See you all next time. Right on, Matt Zoloff. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Always good to see you, my friend. James Prezi says his device manager is up to date. See, now you know. You don't have to wonder. Network card driver's taking a minute, isn't it? We're probably running about twice as long as we normally do live, but I'm making up for 3 days without live videos. That's the excuse I'm using anyway. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and hope you're enjoying this build as much as I am. Some of these builds can get really frustrating for me, but so far, like, I kind of knew what to expect with the install of the Mugen 6 or the Intel chip. The way the NVMe goes in on these new ASUS boards is fantastic. The way the BIOS updates with a zip file not needing to be uncompressed is a pleasure. It's brought some of the enjoyment back for me that a lot of the RGB and liquid cooling nonsense has just sucked the joy out of it. It might be fun to do once, but doing it numerous times over and over and over again, when at the end of the day it's not making much difference in performance, and it's complicating cable management, it's making it take longer to ultimately get to the end result, which we effectively got here for less price and less labor investment. There should just be one last one here, so let me jump over to that right quick. One last driver. I suspect our device manager is probably happy. Oh yeah, everything's good now. And remember, we still have Windows updates to get. I mean, I can run hardware info just out of curiosity to see what our temps are right now. I bet you we're in the 30s. There's our last driver. Everything else is software. I don't want any of the software. So while that's running, let me grab my flash drive and copy over the hardware monitor. And let's see what our temps are at right now. See how well this cooler is working. USB drive. Hardware info, drag it out. Double click. 64-bit. Oh, yeah, that's fantastic. See, one fan, that's all you need. Now, we will run Cinebench on it and get some numbers. That's going to take 20 minutes minimum. I fully suspect that one fan is more than we need for this cooler of this size to keep this chip an Ultra 5 cool. But as far as, you know, a 5 series chip goes, that's a pretty high wattage chip. 125 watts is pretty, can get pretty hot. So in any event, just in case you were wondering if I was all talk, or you think I'm going to do something off camera between now and hopefully tomorrow or the weekend, we can get back to, you know, doing a Cinebench test on this. You can see where it's at right now. Live, unscripted, since we started this video 3.5 hours ago. And I have no reason to make anything up. I get paid the same, one way or the other. All right, Realtek audio driver is almost done. And let's go to, where is it? Where is it? Come on. Get a package? Oh. Okay. You got a person. Should be just another minute. Kind of hanging on the tail there. That's our final driver. That completes the build and configuration of Windows 11. I will buy a product key from SCD Keys. I will buy a Windows 10 Pro product key. I will enter the Windows 10 Pro product key into Windows 11. I just need to make sure everything's working first. If I have to return anything, the product key stays tied to the motherboard. So make that one of the last things you do. Windows is fully functional without the product key ever being installed. It just won't let you make some personalization changes. Nothing you need to rush into. On the other hand, they're $15.72 for Windows 10 Pro product key using the 30% off discount code CAREY at checkout. All the links are in the video notes below the video. We're just trying to save you money. Don't buy the product codes to help me out. I'm trying to help you out by saving you money. If you want to buy your product keys elsewhere that aren't guaranteed and don't necessarily have any support like other sellers, maybe you can save a few bucks and roll the dice. Go for it. But if you choose to do that, also accept your consequences. If you buy from something I'm endorsing, I'll help you with it if need be, and chances are you're not going to need my help because they stand behind their product. If that matters to you and you want that peace of mind, there's no better place for any less money than SCD keys. I've looked and looked, and there's a lot of shady key sellers out there. SCD key is not shady at all. They're very clear and transparent. And if you have any hesitation, you're welcome to buy from anybody. I'm not. All I'm trying to do is save you the headache and give you peace of mind. If you don't want that, I'm not twisting your arm. I'm not a salesman over here, just trying to offer you some help. If I'm throwing you a life preserver and you'd rather swim, that's fine with me. Don't take it. Some people think I'm like out here making $1 million. It's not the case. I'm saving you guys money. And believe it or not, it costs me money to save you guys money. Like by buying all of this so you know what to expect may encourage you to buy something similar or to stay away from something similar if it doesn't meet your needs. There's nothing in it for me other than trying to help, just so we're clear. If you want to support the channel, we certainly appreciate Amazon gift cards, Super Chat contributions, your memberships, PayPal contributions. Very clear and transparent on how we're making money here. And if we can save you money, that's our goal. So at the very least, we introduce you to new products you may not have known about, examples on how to use them and what to expect to pay. That's it. That's all we're about. I realize it's all too simple. The internet, who does that anymore, right? What's really going on? What's the motivation? And the motivation is hopefully that we can continue to do this type of video where we remain free of any corporate, what's the word? I don't want to be beholden to some corporation. I don't mind working with companies as long as there's no money changing hands and they can offer you guys a discount and it's a good product that I would use myself. But I don't necessarily, and there's exceptions. Don't get me wrong, if a company wants to pay a commission on sales, I'm not opposed to it, but that's not what's happening here with these license keys. All right, is this still waiting on something? What am I, this shouldn't be taking this long. Is it 99? Is it waiting on? Temps still look fantastic. I don't see anything. Looking for like an OK box or something, and nothing's popping up here. I just brought that up a second time. Okay. It's always the last one, isn't it? Thank you again to all our members and participants in the chat room today. And remember to check out the forums. Great place to go if you're looking for any help or guidance, any questions you have. The forums are completely free. We have no intention on ever monetizing them. We're open for everybody who wants to come and participate there. And we hope to see you in there. Sorry, I'm a little distracted by the length of time this is taking to install. 99%. When it's done, we're going to have an item down here in the system tray that will be Well, usually it's in the system tray, the Realtek software. It may also be in the start menu. Realtek. Yeah, Realtek Audio Console. And you may notice settings in here that are not standard Windows settings. These come from specifically ASUS development and will give you more control and more options than a standard sound card driver only would do. Again, I am very concerned at this 99%. A system this fast, it shouldn't be taking this long, and I can't help but wonder if my running the other software in the background has interrupted the installation. Yeah, it's still saying 99% for some reason. And I might just be impatient. I might need to just let that sit. It's possible a Windows update is also happening in the background, and that can also interfere with, you know, if two things are trying to install at once, and one thing says, well, there's an installation in process, and it won't finish until that one. It gets a little hairy with updates being on a new system happening in the background. So I'm going to do both of these two things at the same time and hope that it solves itself, but nothing's broken. It's just seems like it's taking too long. In the meantime, that's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us and our friends over at SCD Keys for making sure that you guys get a quality product, legit, legal, supported, backed up by SCD Keys for a fraction of what Microsoft wants to charge you. And to all of our contributors, our members, to our friend Mark Gaines and Charlie Purdy and Alan Lindas, and I'm going to forget somebody. Thank you guys so much for your generosity and your support. I think I got everyone. And yeah, I'm going to try and come back tomorrow or Sunday and finish this up. But as soon as this reboots and it's done, I'm going to just leave it as is, and we'll pick it up just like this on part 2. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your Friday and enjoy your weekend. I'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.